Chapter 1675. Zhouwen naturally wasn't an unreliable person. He didn't raise such a condition to humiliate Mo. In fact, when Sei Gasakai and Mo were fighting, he had already arrived. At that time, Sei Gasakai had already agreed to Mo's challenge. It was too late for him to stop it. Therefore, when Sei Gasakai and Mo fought, Zhouwen activated his teacher domain to observe the extent of Mo's abilities. The teacher domain was a calamity domain derived from the Tao Sutra. The game's introduction was an enlightenment domain. Its actual use was to shield other different power laws. At the same time, it could also study the other party's power laws. It could even reconstruct primordial energy arts by studying the other party's power laws. Zhouwen originally only wanted to study Mo's power, hoping to figure out what kind of power Mo's rebound force was. However, when Zhouwen used the teacher domain to observe, he made an unexpected discovery. This discovery did not originate with Maher, but with Sei Gasakai. This was because Sei Gasakai's Nitin Flying Immortal Ryu had been inspired by Zhouwen's transcendent Flying Immortal and Immortal Slaying. It could be said to be of the same lineage as Zhouwen's Sword Dao. When Sei Gasakai used the Nitin Flying Immortal Ryu's Sword Dao, Zhouwen discovered the other abilities of Shiryu. In the Shur domain, not only could Zhouwen clearly sense all the strengths and weaknesses of Sei Gasakai's Nitin Flying Immortal Ryu, but the Shur domain even automatically modified the flaws of the Nitin Flying Immortal Ryu, allowing Zhouwen to gain new insights into the Shur domain's abilities. He could clearly sense that as long as he was willing, he could use Shiryu to make up for the flaws of Sei Gasakai's Nitin Flying Immortal Ryu. He could even directly raise Sei Gasakai's Sword Dao realm. So that's how it is. The so-called enlightenment domain is indeed not as simple as imitating. Zhouwen came to a realization back then. Sei Gasakai had used the Nitin Flying Immortal Ryu to fight Mo in the Shur domain. It was almost equivalent to Zhouwen fighting Mo himself. Now, Zhouwen had already made a judgment of Mo's Sword Dao realm. At the same time, he wanted to test the Shur domain's new ability, so he raised such a condition. Zhouwen had a vague feeling that Shiryu had already found the path to advancement. Han Shinsakura looked at Zhouwen and couldn't help but feel nervous. The Sword Dao that Zhouwen imparted was probably very profound. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to defeat Mo. He didn't doubt Zhouwen's Sword Dao standards, but he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to master the sword techniques Zhouwen had taught him in such a short period of time. Don't be nervous. Just learn a little. Zhouwen smiled at Han Shinsakura. When others heard this, they felt that Zhouwen was somewhat arrogant. However, that was the truth. This was because he wanted to use the teacher domain to directly raise Han Shinsakura's Sword Dao realm and not really let him learn the three-strike. I will do my best, Han Shinsakura said seriously. Then watch carefully. Zhouwen didn't say anything else. After activating the teacher domain, he began brandishing the saber in his hand. Everyone was attracted by his actions. They wanted to see what peerless sword technique he was going to teach that allowed Han Shinsakura to defeat Mo in such a short period of time. Even Mo he couldn't help but focus on Zhouwen's sword technique. He also wanted to know how good Zhouwen's Sword Dao was. Mo he didn't believe that he would lose to Han Shinsakura. He was already preparing to defeat Zhouwen after defeating Han Shinsakura. However, the three strikes that Zhouwen taught made everyone widen their eyes. It wasn't because Zhouwen's sword techniques were profound and powerful, but because they were too simple. It was so simple that all the disciples of the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace could understand them. Even the young disciples at the mortal stage understood the sword techniques that Zhouwen taught. In fact, it was difficult for them not to understand even if they wanted to. This was because the sword techniques that Zhouwen had displayed were the most basic sword techniques of the Nitin Flying Immortal Ryu. Even the children in the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace had practiced them countless times. They were extremely familiar with them. Master, what's going on? Shiraishi Satomi had already begun to doubt her eyes. She suspected that Jowan had taught her something profound, but she just couldn't understand it. Sei Gasakai was also puzzled. He was also suspecting if Zhou Wen's 3 ordinary strikes contained some profundity. However, he really couldn't tell what was different between the 3 strikes and the basic sword moves of the Nitin flying immortal Ryu he had created. He frowned. He had focused on studying the Nitin flying immortal Ryu, so he naturally knew these basic sword moves like the back of his hand. However, he couldn't tell how Jowan could defeat him with these 3 strikes. Ignoring the fact that Han Shinsakura had used these 3 strikes to defeat him, he didn't believe that it would be of any use even if Jowan used these 3 strikes himself. The others didn't sense anything, but Han Shinsakura felt completely different from them. Under the effects of the teacher domain, the 3 ordinary strikes were like 3 bolts of lightning that struck Han Shinsakura's brain. It made Han Shinsakura feel enlightened as many unprecedented Sword Dao experiences exploded in his mind. So the Nitin flying immortal Ryu I cultivated has so many flaws. So this is the profundity of the Nitin flying immortal Ryu. I never expected there to be such a realm in the eyes of others. The 3 simple strikes gave Han Shinsakura 3 epiphanies. Originally, his Sword Dao cultivation level was already close to Sei Gasakai's, but suddenly, with 3 epiphanies, his Sword Dao realm instantly rose to an unbelievable realm. Epiphanies were extremely difficult. A swordsman could become a sword master if he had an epiphany once in his life. For example, Sei Gasakai had an epiphany because of Jowan. He had created the Nitin flying immortal Ryu and obtained the reputation of a sword sage overseas. Now Han Shinsakura had 3 consecutive epiphanies. It was an unbelievable fortuitous encounter. In an instant, his Sword Dao realm had reached a level that even Sei Gasakai found difficult to reach. At that moment, he was pleasantly surprised. He almost couldn't believe that he had such an epiphany. He looked at Jowan as though he was looking at a god. If he wasn't a god, how could he use such a simple 3 strikes to give him such an epiphany? Jowan looked at Han Shinsakura and was equally pleasantly surprised. As Han Shinsakura's epiphany and improvement, his teacher domain also began to improve, evolving from the human stage to the hell stage. Jowan originally believed that by using the teacher domain to educate Han Shinsakura's understanding of the Nitin flying immortal Ryu should have reached the limit of his comprehension. However, that wasn't the case. After Han Shinsakura experienced 3 epiphanies, the Nitin flying immortal Ryu Sword Dao, he comprehended, had already exceeded the scope of the teacher domain. The master leads the way, but the cultivation is up to the individual. The enlightenment of the teacher domain is no longer limited to one's bottleneck. If the enlightenment of the person being enlightened exceeds the teacher domain, it can instead nourish the teacher domain. Jowan had already completely understood the abilities of the teacher domain. Chapter 1676. His sword technique is only SOSO. Unless he uses a power above the terrorgrade, these 3 strikes should be enough for you to defeat him. Jowan threw the saber back to Han Shinsakura. You don't have to use words to agitate me. I said that I would only use the same strength as him, so I won't go back on my word. If I use a power above the terrorgrade, I will naturally lose, he said coldly. He didn't believe that Han Shinsakura could defeat him with 3 strikes. Jowan didn't comment, but Han Shinsakura suddenly bowed to Jowan and said seriously, Sir, I'll remember your kindness in imparting the Tao to me. Go. Jowan nodded slightly. Only then did Han Shinsakura stand up and walk towards he with his saber in hand. The disciples of the Nitin flying immortal palace had odd expressions. They really couldn't tell what was so special about Zhou Wen's 3 strikes that was worth Han Shinsakura's bow. Shiraishi Satomi was also puzzled. She looked at Sei Gasakai and asked, Master, are Zhou Wen's 3 strikes really that magical? She knew how arrogant Han Shinsakura was. To be able to make Han Shinsakura bow so politely meant that Han Shinsakura treated the other party as an existence like his master. From this, it also meant that the 3 strikes were definitely extraordinary. However, Shiraishi Satomi couldn't tell that the 3 strikes were different from the basic sword moves she had learned in the past. How can a figure like Mr. Zhou speak nonsense? Sei Gasakai couldn't tell what was so special about the 3 strikes, but he could sense that Han Shinsakura's aura had changed. This change didn't look obvious. If Han Shinsakura hadn't been taught by Sei Gasakai, it would have been difficult for him to tell. Please be careful of my saber. Han Shinsakura stopped opposite Mohi. He held the saber Zhouwen had borrowed in his hand, but he didn't summon the second short saber he often used. The disciples of the Nitin Flying Immortal Ryu all used dual blades, so Han Shinsakura was naturally the best at dual blades. He only used 1 blade and not 2, not because Zhou Wenjiao only used 1 blade in the 3 strikes, but because Han Shinsakura wanted to avenge Sei Gasakai. Mohi had used a water sword to defeat Mohi, so he also wanted to use a blade to defeat Mohi. Mohi looked at Han Shinsakura as a strange glint flashed in his eyes. After all, he was a calamity-grade expert. He could sense the change in Han Shinsakura's temperament, but he still couldn't figure out what Han Shinsakura could learn from the 3 strikes. He had watched Zhouwen teach the 3 strikes with his own eyes. He really couldn't figure out what the 3 strikes could do. Don't waste time. Attack. Mohi casually grabbed and condensed the seawater into a sword again. He looked at Han Shinsakura and said indifferently, "Don't waste time. Attack." Although he knew that Han Shinsakura had grown, Mo didn't believe that Han Shinsakura could grow to the point of defeating him. Even if Zhouwen had taught Han Shinsakura the sword art of God, it was impossible for him to improve to the point where he could fight him in such a short period of time. Furthermore, the 3 strikes that Zhouwen had taught him were only the introductory sword techniques of the Nitin Flying Immortal Ryu. In a battle between true experts, confidence was also an important factor. If one didn't have confidence, it would be very difficult to win unless one's strength was truly overwhelming. How could Mohi make such a mistake? Han Shinsakura didn't say anything else. He held his saber with one hand and slashed at Mohi. This strike wasn't one of the 3 strikes that Zhouwen had taught him, but the one that Sei Gasakai had slashed at Mohi. It was almost identical without any difference. Indeed, the 3 strikes that Zhouwen taught are useless. He is still using Sei Gasakai's sword Dao. Those 3 strikes are just a decoy. However, you have underestimated me, Mohi. How can such a small trick succeed in front of me? Moreover, I have just broken the sword style he used. Mohi thought to himself. However, the ice sword in his hand did not hesitate and stabbed forward again. Ha ha! Ha ha! The battle between the 2 was almost a replica of the battle between Sei Gasakai and Mohi. The only difference was that Han Shinsakura only had 1 saber in his hand and didn't have the ability to protect himself. Shiraishi Satomi was already at a loss for words. Sei Gasakai had already given it a try. This strike was bound to fail, but Han Shinsakura had actually done it again. It wasn't just her. None of the disciples of the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace knew what was going on. The elders even wondered if Han Shinsakura's brain was damaged. Only Sei Gasakai seemed to understand something. He shook his head slightly and said with a smile, "This child is quite thoughtful." The ice sword that was advancing at an extremely slow speed collided with the saber that was slashing at him again. The ice sword was shattered once again, and everything was exactly the same as before. It was like a movie remake. Although Mohi was confident, he was still somewhat afraid. Therefore, he held back and was prepared to deal with any unforeseen circumstances. However, nothing unforeseen happened. Han Shinsakura's saber shattered his ice sword. The ice sword fragments turned into water that flowed past Han Shinsakura's saber and condensed into a water sword that pointed at Han Shinsakura's chest. He won? He naturally couldn't believe that it would go so smoothly, but seeing that the water sword was about to pierce Han Shinsakura's chest, he had no choice but to believe it. Suddenly, Emohi's heart palpitated as though he had sensed some great danger. His eyes focused, and he immediately realized that Han Shinsakura's saber had slashed at his waist at some point in time. His sword and Han Shinsakura's saber could hit each other at almost the same time, but he was only holding a water sword, while Han Shinsakura was holding a Terragrade companion beast saber. The outcome would be different if they both hit each other. Unless Emohi used a strength that exceeded the Terragrade, he would definitely be the one to suffer. When that happened, he would naturally lose. I thought it was some brilliant sword technique, but it turns out that he just wants to use such a method to defeat me. Isn't he too naive? Emohi's calamity grade thinking ability and reaction were naturally not something Han Shinsakura could compare with. At that instant, countless thoughts flashed through Emohi's mind. Almost at the same time, his body naturally moved. His body moved slightly as the water sword in his hand stabbed forward at the same speed. This way, Han Shinsakura's saber would brush past him, and his water sword would hit Han Shinsakura. In fact, this reaction speed had already exceeded the limits of a Terragrade. However, this wasn't a substantial calamity grade power, so it couldn't be said that Emohi had broken the rules. However, after Emohi finished doing all of this, his pupils suddenly constricted as a look of disbelief appeared on his face. It was as though he had seen a ghost. He originally imagined that Han Shinsakura had used all his strength to slash out, but that wasn't the case at all. Han Shinsakura's reaction speed was far inferior to his, so it was impossible for him to keep up with his changes and change his move. However, Han Shinsakura seemed to have expected him to change his move. His saber changed midway. This change was completed almost at the same time as Emohi's, and it happened to restrain Emohi's changes. Emohi never expected such a situation to happen. It was as though he had foresight. If he hadn't changed his body and instead stabbed down with his sword, Han Shinsakura would have lost. However, because of his changes, Han Shinsakura had restrained him. At such a close distance, unless he used his calamity grade speed to change again, there was nothing he could do. In just a moment of hesitation, the water sword in Emohi's hand had already been shattered by the saber in Han Shinsakura's hand. The tip of the saber also stopped in front of Emohi's chest. Instantly, there was only the sound of the waves on the sea. Everyone seemed to be petrified as they watched Han Shinsakura point his saber at Emohi's chest. Am I King dreaming? On the ship, someone shouted as though he was sleep-talking. Chapter 1677. Am I still living in a dream? The disciple from the second heaven's flying palace stared with widened eyes, almost unable to believe what he was seeing. With just one strike, Han Shinsakura had actually defeated Emohi, who couldn't be underestimated. It was unbelievable. However, what shocked them the most wasn't that Han Shinsakura had defeated Emohi with one strike, but that Zhouwen had only taught him 3 simple strikes. Yet, Han Shinsakura's sword Dao had improved by leaps and bounds. Han Shinsakura's sword techniques were originally inferior to Sei Gasakai's. Even Sei Gasakai had been defeated by Emohi with one strike, but now Han Shinsakura was able to defeat Emohi with one strike. This was an unimaginable difference. All the disciples of the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace looked at Zhouwen as though they were looking at a god, or as though they were looking at an immortal pill. It was as though they could immediately ascend to immortality if they swallowed him. The more people understood Han Shinsakura, the more they found it unbelievable. Just like Shiraishi Satomi, she often practiced swordplay with Han Shinsakura. She knew Han Shinsakura's sword Dao very well, but now, she realized that Han Shinsakura's sword Dao was like the sea. She couldn't see through its depths, and it even made her feel insignificant. And all of this was because Zhouwen had taught him 3 strikes. It was like a miracle. He stared intently at Han Shinsakura. He couldn't believe that Han Shinsakura had become so strong just because Zhou had taught him 3 strikes. However, the truth was right in front of him. He had no choice but to believe it. If Han Shinsakura had such a level long ago, he wouldn't have watched helplessly as Sei Gasakai was defeated without doing anything. Is it because Zhou teaching level is too high, or is it because Han Shinsakura's perception is too terrifying? This thought flashed through Emohi's mind as he instantly gave the answer. Han Shinsakura had followed Sei Gasakai for so many years. If his talent was really that strong, he would have long formed his own faction and surpassed his master. He wouldn't have waited until now to have such a breakthrough. The only explanation was that Zhou sword Dao was just too powerful. Although he wasn't willing to believe it, he had to admit that he didn't understand how Zhou had taught him. This made him doubt his realm and standards. Your Excellency has lost. Han Shinsakura retracted his blade and said to Mo, I won't go back on my word. I won't stop anyone from the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace from going anywhere. With that said, he ignored Han Shinsakura and turned to look at Zhou. He stared at him and said, The King of Thieves indeed lives up to his reputation. He's even stronger than the legends say. I wonder if you dare to fight me? Zhou was filled with joy because with Han Shinsakura's epiphany, his teacher domain had advanced from the human stage to the hell stage. Even Zhou hadn't expected such an advancement speed. At that moment, he was thinking that if he did it a few more times, wouldn't you be able to easily advance to the heaven realm? In fact, it wasn't as simple as Zhou thought. The reason why you could directly advance from the human stage to the hell stage was because Han Shinsakura's talent and perceptivity were too powerful. Under the influence of Shiryu, he had 3 epiphanies. His sword Dao had already reached an unbelievable realm. In terms of sword Dao, even a heaven realm swordsman probably didn't have full confidence in defeating Han Shinsakura. It could be said that Han Shinsakura was already a true sword Dao master. If it were an ordinary person with poor talent and perceptivity, it would be hard to say if they could have 1 epiphany, much less 3 times. You could only impart experience and affect perceptivity, but he wasn't strong enough to forcefully enlighten others. It could be said that Shiryu and Han Shinsakura were mutually beneficial. Furthermore, Han Shinsakura was able to have 3 epiphanies. Apart from his talent, immense pressure was also an important reason. The fate of the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace rested on his shoulders, giving him the motivation to exceed his own potential. If it were any other time, under the influence of the Shur domain, he might have had 1 or 2 epiphanies, but he might not have had as many as 3. If Zhou wanted to use Shiryu to teach such a person, it wouldn't be that easy. Thankfully, there were many geniuses on Earth. There would be plenty of opportunities in the future. However, there were many geniuses around Zhou that he could make use of. However, there was another problem. Zhou had to have a deep understanding of the Tao they cultivated. Otherwise, Shiryu's abilities would be greatly reduced. Come find me after you advance to the heaven realm. Zhou wasn't too interested in fighting Emohi. After experiencing the 2 battles, Zhou had a rough understanding of Emohi's realm. Emohi's realm was already considered very strong among humans, but it was only very strong. If he wasn't at the calamity grade and didn't have the astonishing ability to reflect damage, it would be impossible for him to be so famous with his realm. These words were practically telling Emohi that his abilities weren't good enough. Go back and train for a few more years. If Zhou had said this when he first arrived, even the disciples of the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace would have thought that he was too arrogant. However, now that Zhou said that, everyone felt that there was nothing wrong with it. Emohi couldn't even defeat Han Shinsakura, who Zhou had taught him 3 strikes, so how could he be Zhou's match? When Emohi heard Zhou's words, he couldn't help but raise his brows slightly. Perhaps your sword Dao realm is indeed above mine, But Sword Dao Realm isn't the only criterion for determining victory. It looks like you are very confident in your ability to reflect damage, Zhou said calmly. Do you dare or not? Emohi said coldly. It has nothing to do with whether I dare or not. What benefits do I get from fighting you? Zhou said with a smile. What benefits do you want? Emohi was first taken aback before he asked with a frown. If you lose, tell me why you must let the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace join the family clan of gods, Zhou said. Zhou had always been puzzled by this question. Although the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace was considered a sizable faction, and Sei Gasakai and Han Shinsakura were considered elites among humans, it didn't seem worthy of their attention. At the very least, there was no need for them to pay such a huge price for the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace, much less be so persistent. Sure. Emohi hesitated for a moment before agreeing to Zhou request. Since he could no longer take the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace into the family clan of gods, this secret was meaningless to them. Furthermore, even if Zhou knew of this secret, he might not be able to obtain any benefits from it. Then let's not waste time. Let's begin. Just as Zhou said that, he condensed the power of the ancient Sovereign Sutra and struck Emohi's head. The Calamity Domain condensed by the ancient Sovereign Sutra was called the Human Emperor Sacrificial Domain. This power could restrain Lord Lusen's ability to reflect damage. Zhou also wanted to know if the power of the ancient Sovereign Sutra could restrain Emohi. When Emohi saw Zhou's palm strike, he had no intention of dodging. He felt that his Sword Dao realm was inferior to Zhou's. Instead of wasting time competing with techniques, he might as well use his strongest strength to determine victory with Zhou. Bam! Zhou's palm struck Emohi's head, producing a dull thud. End of this chapter. Chapter 1678. Mo's life providence was known as harming others without benefiting himself. Back then, he was famous for being a crippled life providence. When he hurt others, not only would they not be injured, but he would also suffer the same injuries. This life providence once made Mo doubt his life, but he didn't sink into it like the average person. Instead, he regained his confidence and firmly believed that there were no crippled life providences in the world. There were only crippled people. He would definitely find a way to use his life providence. However, after trying one method after another, they all ended in failure. Mo had also thought that perhaps his life soul had some special attribute that could reverse the disadvantages of his life providence, or even turn them into advantages. However, the outcome wasn't the same. His life soul was still very weak, and he was similarly unable to harm others. When humans finally found a way to advance to the mythical stage, Mo placed his hopes on the Wheel of Destiny, thinking that perhaps it could change everything. However, the outcome was the same. His Wheel of Destiny was still of the same type. He still couldn't harm anyone. Even with Emohi's strong mental endurance, he was on the verge of breaking down. Although he was a member of the God's family clan, he was just a cripple and could not obtain many resources. He had already paid the price to be able to reach the mythical level. No matter how many resources the family had, it was impossible for them to help him advance to the Terra grade. Mo didn't blame his family. He felt that it was very fair. If it were him, he wouldn't invest resources on a hopeless person. Just as Emohi had given up all hope, he had not expected that a death clan from another dimension would find him and help him advance to the Calamity grade. Mo's life providence finally underwent a reversal when he advanced to the Terra grade and entered the Terra form. Just as he had imagined, he turned his disadvantage into an advantage. His Terra form was called Karma Reversal. Under the effects of the Terra form, harming others without benefiting himself became harming others for his own benefit. His life soul and Wheel of Destiny became extremely powerful as a result. Only when he advanced to the Calamity grade could he finally control his strength freely and no longer be restrained. Not only could he injure others, but in his domain, if others harmed him, they would also have their karma reversed, causing the enemy to suffer injuries instead. Furthermore, this backlash would increase exponentially. Mo knew his abilities very well. Even if Zhou Wen's level was higher than his and his strength was stronger, it was still impossible for him to defeat him. The stronger Zhou Wen was, the more tragic his defeat would be. Bang! Zhou Wen slapped Mo on the head. Just as Mo was considering if he should take the opportunity to get rid of Zhou Wen, he suddenly felt a buzz in his head. His mind went blank as his body fell forward uncontrollably, slamming heavily into the ground. Following that, an intense pain spread throughout his body as the sound of bones cracking constantly sounded. Mo was slapped to the ground by Zhou Wen as his body twisted and sank into the ground. All the bones in his body cracked as blood seeped out of his 7 orifices. No, impossible. Mo's pupils contracted as he struggled to get up. However, he realized that the bones in his arms and legs had been broken into several pieces, and he couldn't control them at all. Not to mention standing up, he couldn't move at all. The intense pain invaded his nerves and waved. On the huge ship in the distance, the disciples of the Nitin flying immortal palace were dead silent. Everyone's mouths were agape as they stared blankly at Zhou Wen, who was standing there, and Mo who had been slammed into the concrete ground. For an instant, they suspected that this was the real Mo. Perhaps this Mo was just a weak fake. Otherwise, how could he have been slapped to the ground by Zhou Wen to the point where he couldn't even get up? That was Mo, the Mo who had appeared in an invincible manner on the Rubik's Cube. Even calamity-grade dimensional creatures had been casually killed by him. He didn't even need to do a thing. If calamity creatures attacked him, they would be killed by the backlash. He was the spokesperson of the death race, Mo. If it wasn't for Mo killing hundreds of companion beast behemoths with one hand, and if it wasn't for Mo defeating say Gasikai with one strike, they could say without any doubt that he was definitely a trash imposter. But now, they looked at Zhou Wen with eyes filled with fanaticism and awe. This was the true pinnacle of human combat strength. Without becoming a spokesperson or relying on a guardian, he had reached an unbelievable level with his own strength. He had casually taught Han Shinsakura 3 moves, allowing Han Shinsakura to completely defeat Mo in sword technique. With a casual palm, he had slapped Mo to the ground like a toad. What a terrifying existence he was. Master, is he really a pure human? Even Shiraishi Satomi, who knew Zhou Wen's identity as human emperor, found it difficult to believe the truth she knew. To be able to kill Mo with a single slap, Shiraishi Satomi found it hard to believe that a pure human could reach this stage. One had to know that before Zhou Wen was born, no human could advance to the mythical stage as a pure-blooded human, much less slap a calamity grade to the ground with a single palm. Some people are born different, say Gasikai said with a sigh. At that moment, Zhou Wen was like a god in the eyes of the Nitin flying immortal palace disciples. Zhou Wen looked at Mo who was struggling on the ground but unable to stand up. He was somewhat surprised. He never expected the power of the ancient Sovereign Sutra to have a stronger restraining effect on Mo than he imagined. However, Zhou Wen quickly understood the reason. He had kept the sure domain, which had been raised to the Hellgrade. Now, the effects of the sure domain were even stronger than before. During the entire process of the ancient Sovereign Sutra's power resisting Mo's power, the effects of the sure domain were completely unleashed due to Mo's power being restrained. The laws of Mo's power had already been deduced by the sure domain. Zhou Wen already understood the laws of Mo's power and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Mo is quite unlucky. This power that reverses karma can give him an advantage over any powerful force. However, the domain power of the ancient Sovereign Sutra is a power of sacrifice. Human emperor sacrifices the heavens, sacrificing oneself to help others. When used on him, it was originally a power of salvation, but it was forcefully turned into a form of harm by his power of reversing karma. It was only because Zhou had the mindset of giving it a try in the beginning that he didn't dare use his full strength. He was afraid that the ancient sovereign sutra's power wouldn't be able to injure Mo He and he would end up suffering instead. If he had used his full strength, he would probably have smacked Mo He to death. Find someone and send him back. Zhou wasn't a bloodthirsty person, nor did he have a reason to kill Mo He. If it were anyone else, they might have believed that Mo He was an enemy and wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible. However, Zhou stood in a different position, so his horizons were different. Especially after a few conversations with his teacher, Wang Mingyuan, Zhou clearly realized that his enemy wasn't humans, nor was it these spokespersons, but the terrifying dimension. These spokespersons might become the hope and main combat strength of humanity in the future. This was also why he didn't object to Feng Qiuyan and Mingxiu becoming spokespersons. Chapter 1679. You won't kill me? Mo He asked in surprise. He never expected that Zhou would get someone to send him back instead of killing him. Others might be afraid of the family clan of God's faction and wouldn't dare attack him due to their qualms, but Mo He knew very well that the infamily had no intention of compromising with the family clan of gods. Even if the infamily was willing to compromise, an existence like Zhou didn't need to worry about the family clan of gods. Why should I kill you? Zhou asked calmly. Because I'm your enemy now. Mo He was startled at first and then said, My enemies have never been humans. With that said, Zhou turned around and walked towards Han Shinsakura. Looking at Zhou's back, Mo He's expression kept changing. He kept thinking about Zhou's words, My enemies have never been humans. He didn't know what to feel. Han Shinsakura found 2 disciples to send Mo away and led the remaining disciples back to guide Ancient City with Zhou. The elders who were originally unwilling to move to guide Ancient City were now overjoyed. From time to time, they would appear in front of Zhou and address him as Mr. Zhou in an affectionate manner. Zhou was in a rather good mood. He originally thought that it would be a tiring trip, but he never expected to find a way to advance the Shi domain. He was already planning to find Feng Qiuyan, Mingxiu, and Qin Zhen to see if they could raise the Shi domain to the heaven realm. When he came, he directly used his spatial transference ability, so it didn't take him much time. However, when he returned, he had to slowly travel with more than 10,000 Ertian flying Immortal Palace disciples. It wasn't that fast. As the route they chose was relatively safe, they didn't encounter too much trouble along the way. There was no need for Zhou to do anything about the small problems. Han Shinsakura and company resolved them themselves, so Zhou had nothing to do. He wanted to play the game dungeon, but his phone was still charging, so he couldn't use it. The charging time was longer than Zhou had expected. After more than 50 hours, the phone's battery finally reached 99%. It was just 1% away from being fully charged. Zhou held his phone and waited for the final 1% to be completed. He was very curious about the difference after the phone was fully charged. Charging a normal phone was only for battery life, but the mysterious phone had no need for battery life at all. There should be some changes when charging. Ding! With a notification, the battery reached 100%. As Zhou looked forward to it, the screen finally changed. The battery icon disappeared and the screen turned black. A line of white words appeared in the middle of the screen. The battery is fully charged. System rebooting, restart? Why aren't you leveling up? Zhou was somewhat disappointed. He imagined that there would be a tremendous change, but he never expected it to be a reboot. The phone didn't make Zhou wait too long. After a while, the line of text vanished. The phone screen lit up again and entered the familiar desktop. Looking at the familiar scene, Zhou swiped a few times with his finger, but he didn't discover any obvious differences. Even the background was the same. Every game dungeon's icon was identical. Don't tell me this thing is really just for charging and increasing my battery life? Zhouwen was depressed. After all this time, it didn't seem any different. After flipping through it several times, other than the icons of the downloaded game dungeons, nothing else had been added. No matter how he looked at it, it was exactly the same as before. Unwilling to give up, he studied it for a while longer, only to be completely disappointed. The mysterious phone didn't change at all. Are you messing with me? Zhouwen was depressed, but there was nothing he could do. He clicked open the Ant City dungeon. Having not grinded for a few days, he planned on grinding it to see if he could get anything useful. I wonder if the drop rate will be higher after charging it. It can't be useless, right? As Zhouwen thought to himself, he was suddenly stunned when he saw the Ant City dungeon. After clicking on the icon, he didn't directly enter the game screen like before. Instead, two options appeared: normal mode, hidden mode. I knew it was impossible for there to be no changes at all. Could this be the legendary hidden dungeon? Zhouwen was overjoyed when he saw the two options. Without any hesitation, he chose the hidden mode. In previous games there were always some hidden places. Even if he cleared the game, it was very likely that he wouldn't discover those hidden mysterious dungeons. Typically, he had to use special methods to enter. Hidden dungeons often had all sorts of hidden bosses and treasures. It was also possible that the drop rate was much higher than ordinary dungeons. Zhouwen only imagined the scene of a few dimensional creatures dropping companion eggs and primordial energy crystals after entering a hidden dungeon. He couldn't wait any longer. If he was lucky, he might be able to drop a divine artifact just by killing a monster. Just the thought of it excited him. Ant City was a dungeon that came with the phone. It was also the first dungeon Zhouwen had come into contact with. However, Zhouwen had yet to kill the Guardian in Ant City. This Guardian could actually become stronger and stronger over time. This was a unique existence. After entering Ant City, the game screen didn't seem to change. The ant-type dimensional creatures didn't show any signs of becoming stronger. With Zhouwen's present strength, he could kill a large swath of them with a single strike. Soon, he arrived at the ant nest. Just as Zhouwen was about to rush into the huge hive where the Golden Ant King was, he suddenly saw a strange glow appear on the game screen. Although it was called Ant City, it was actually a huge cave with many ant nests inside. In the past, Zhouwen would clear the ant nests before fighting the Ant City Guardian. The layout of the cave and the ant nest didn't change, but in the innermost part of the cave, there was a mountain wall that shimmered with golden light. Zhouwen looked carefully and realized that there was a protruding rock on the mountain wall that shimmered with golden light. The rock was only the size of a palm and slightly protruded in an arc. Its color and texture were no different from ordinary rock. If it wasn't for the rock shimmering with golden light, Zhouwen probably wouldn't have noticed it no matter how many times he came. Zhouwen stopped provoking the ant horde in Ant City and summoned the invisibility cloak to wear. He secretly came in front of the shimmering rock and reached out to touch it. The rock itself didn't seem to be anything special. It was no different from the rocks beside it, so it was unlikely to be a treasure. Zhouwen attempted to probe it. When he tried to rotate the rock with his hand, the rock actually moved. Then, he heard a cracking sound as the rock retracted into the mountain wall. Then, the mountain wall cracked open, revealing a crack that could allow a person to pass through. 2 days ago, I played with my cat. It was too crazy and I threw it out. It was afraid and reached out its claws to grab my hand. In the end, it flew away and left 3 bloody claw marks on my hand. I went to get a rabies vaccine and was asked to get a serum injection. It's a little inconvenient for me to type. I've made everyone worried. End of this chapter. Chapter 1680. The rift was filled with golden light, making it impossible to see what was inside. Zhouwen had no choice but to give up on observing it and control the blood-colored avatar to enter the rift. It looked resplendent on the outside, but the golden light was like a thin layer of ripples. After passing through the golden light, there was another cave inside. The cave was rather large, and the space was about the same as a factory's warehouse. Inside the huge cave, there was no sign of dimensional creatures. There was only a huge egg-shaped object carved from gold on a stone platform. That thing was golden and looked very much like 24K gold. It was more than a meter tall and nearly a meter wide. It looked fat, and there were many strange patterns on it. They were curved, and no one knew what they were. Perhaps they weren't patterns at all, but natural patterns. Is this a companion egg? Zhou reached out to caress the golden egg as a message immediately appeared on his phone. Golden Demonic Ant King. Mortal, evolvable, strength. 11 speed. 11 constitution. 11 primordial energy. 11 talent skill. Golden Guardian, demonification, ant strength god, king form companion form. Golden battle armor, an evolvable companion beast. Zhou expression turned odd. This was equivalent to picking it up for free. Furthermore, from its skills, it was both king and demon god. It seemed rather powerful. If every dimensional zone had such a hidden spot, wouldn't he be able to pick up godly items everywhere? With this in mind, Zhou couldn't close his mouth. He hatched the golden demonic ant king without looking at what it looked like. He eagerly exited the Ant City dungeon and chose the Big Dipper dungeon. Ant City could only be considered a low-level game dungeon. Apart from the Ant City Guardian, the other dimensional creatures' levels were pitifully low. If such a dungeon had evolvable companion beasts, what treasures would be hidden in a high-level dungeon like the Big Dipper? Just the thought made Zhou excited and look forward to it. Of course, there were some higher-level dungeons, such as Chess Mountain. Although there might be better items hidden there, Zhou couldn't clear those places. He couldn't enter any random place. If the hidden dungeon was somewhere Zhou couldn't reach, it would be useless even if he entered. Zhou could already clear the 7-star palaces of the Big Dipper dungeon. No matter where the hidden dungeon was, he could find it. He planned on using it as an experiment. He eagerly clicked open the Big Dipper dungeon. Just like before, there were 2 choices, normal and hidden mode. Zhou didn't hesitate to choose hidden mode. After entering the 1st star palace, he didn't find any traces of the hidden dungeon. All he could do was storm through the star palaces one by one, but he was disappointed again and again. After killing 6 star lords in the star palaces, he didn't find any traces of the hidden dungeon. From the looks of it, it must be in the last star palace. At that moment, Zhou wasn't in a hurry. He teleported into the last Alcade Star Palace. The Alcade Star Palace was the Star Palace where Star Lord Vanquisher resided. It was the last of the 7 Big Dipper Star Palaces. In front of the Star Palace there was a long staircase. Walking on it would cause one to lose all their essence energy. Only Sure Yu's power could restrain the taboo power. Without Sure Yu's ability, they would lose all their essence chi when they reached the Star Palace. No matter how strong they were, they would be killed by Star Lord Defeating Army. However, to Zhou, Star Lord Defeating Army was the easiest Star Lord to kill. In front of the staircase, he didn't find any traces of the hidden dungeon. Zhou activated Sure Yu and walked into the Star Palace. With one strike, he killed Star Lord Defeating Army. Unfortunately, only some essence energy crystals dropped. He didn't find any companion eggs or skill crystals. Zhou didn't care about this at all today. He didn't even look at the essence energy crystals on the ground, because he realized that there was an icy blue light shimmering in the Alcade Star Palace. The Alcade Star Palace was a miniature starry sky. On the top of the arc-shaped Star Palace, there were many stars twinkling. It should have been a sky filled with stars, but now there was a star that shone with a dazzling icy blue light. It covered the light of the other stars, making them dim. Only that star shone with an icy blue glow. Without a doubt, the miniature star that shone with an icy blue glow in the corner was likely the key to the hidden dungeon. Zhou flew over and soon arrived in front of the miniature star. Although he knew how to activate the hidden dungeon, it was only a matter of time before he figured out the method since he had found the crux of the matter. Zhou studied it for a while. When he pushed the miniature star to spin, it immediately erupted with a dazzling icy blue beam. Zhou was given a fright as he teleported into the distance. However, he realized that the icy blue beam wasn't aimed at him. Instead, it happened to shoot at the teleportation array in the Alcade Star Palace. The teleportation array was immediately dyed icy blue. The star lines shimmered with an icy blue glow, completely different from how they usually looked when activated. This was the last Star Palace. Usually, he would directly teleport out of the Big Dipper Star Palace through this teleportation array. Now it looked like a completely different world. Zhou walked into the teleportation array, and the teleportation array that emitted a blue light immediately activated, teleporting him out of the Alcade Star Palace. After a moment of dizziness, the scene in front of Zhou became clear. After seeing the scene in front of him clearly, Zhou couldn't help but be slightly taken aback. In front of him was another star palace. It was a star palace built from ice. The Star Palace was supported by huge ice pillars. There was a door, but there was no door panel. At a glance, he could see that in the middle of the huge ice palace stood a Star Lord dressed in ice armor. The Star Lord stood on the ice platform, her posture tall and straight. Her head was slightly raised, and her eyes under the profound ice armor seemed to be looking up at the sky. Her hands were folded on the hilt of a profound ice sword, and the tip of the profound ice sword was inserted into the ice platform. From her curvaceous figure that even the armor couldn't hide, she was undoubtedly a female celebrity. However, her aura was like that of a sovereign descending upon the world. It made one have the urge to bow down and kowtow. Star Lord Polaris. When Zhou saw the female celebrity's name in-game, he was immediately alarmed as his expression changed. This name wasn't unfamiliar to Zhou at all. Back then, the antelope had tricked him into carrying a huge log to Forbidden City. However, when he arrived at Forbidden City, he realized that the log was a living coffin. The person sleeping inside was Star Lord Polaris, and he had nearly lost Zhou life. However, Star Lord Polaris was a guardian. Zhou believed that it was just a coincidence that their names were the same. There shouldn't be any relationship between the two. However, in the next second, Zhou realized that his thoughts were wrong. Chapter 1681. When Purple Star Lord slowly lowered his head to look at Zhou, starlight appeared in the ice palace like a sky full of stars. It was the heavenly cycle stellar array that Zhou was very familiar with. Back then, Zhou had imitated Purple Star Lord's heavenly cycle stellar array and created a minor heavenly cycle array. With just a glance, Zhou's hair stood on end. He summoned the Hellstage Chaos Egg to protect his body. It was because he was too familiar with the heavenly cycle stellar array that Zhou knew how terrifying the starlight was. The one in Forbidden City was already very terrifying. This heavenly cycle stellar array didn't seem much different, but the power within left Zhou's heart palpitating. Just as the Chaos Egg was summoned, he saw the sky fill with starlight. Endless starlight shone on the Chaos Egg, instantly devouring the entire star palace. The number of essence energy crystals in the Chaos Egg rapidly increased. The Hellstage Chaos Egg could fuse 100 million essence energy crystals into one, but even so, it was difficult for it to contain the rapidly produced essence energy. In just a few seconds, the Hellstage Chaos Egg exploded. The blood-colored avatar that was exposed to the starlight was instantly killed by the starlight. What the hell is this thing? It's definitely a heaven realm existence. Isn't a hidden dungeon just treasure picking? Why is there such a thing? Zhou looked at the game screen that had turned black, his mind filled with question marks. His original plan of treasure picking didn't seem to work now. Zhou thought for a moment and had a new guess about the hidden dungeon. Now, Zhou suspected that the reason why Ant City's hidden dungeon didn't have dimensional creatures and only had one companion egg was very likely because it was a dungeon that came with the phone. It was equivalent to a newbie dungeon. As for the golden demonic Ant King companion egg, it was like a newbie benefit. Under normal circumstances, Zhou would have obtained the golden demonic Ant King companion beast from the beginning if he had the power bank. Unfortunately, he had only obtained the phone in the beginning and didn't have the power bank. Therefore, he had missed the newbie benefit. Now, Zhou seriously suspected that apart from Ant City's hidden dungeon, the other hidden dungeons wouldn't be so easy to obtain benefit. It wasn't difficult to confirm this guess. Zhou started a new dungeon. This time, he opened the low-level Dragon Gate Grotto. The truth was as Zhou had guessed. When he found the hidden dungeon in Dragon Gate Grotto, he realized that the hidden dungeon was the Dragon's Well that Wang Mingyuan had used to mutate. In that case, these hidden dungeons also exist in reality. It's just that some hidden dungeons haven't been discovered? A thought flashed through Zhou mind. However, after thinking about it, even if he knew the location of the hidden dungeon in real life, it did not seem to be of much use. In any case, he could grind the hidden dungeon in-game. That's not right. Zhou quickly realized that something was amiss. This was because he had previously thought of entering Ant City's hidden dungeon again to see if he could obtain a golden demonic Ant King companion egg, but there was nothing inside. In other words, it was very likely that the items inside the hidden instance dungeon would not refresh. Or perhaps the refresh rate was very slow. In that case, knowing the location of the hidden instance dungeon in the real world became very important. After clearing a hidden dungeon in the game, he could return to the real world to clear it again. This was equivalent to obtaining the reward of clearing 2 hidden dungeons. Just like the White Dragon in Dragon's Well, the White Dragon in real life had been fused by Wang Mingyuan, but there was still a White Dragon in-game. Now, all Zhou needed to do was kill the White Dragon and see if it would respawn again. Then, he would know if his guess was wrong. The White Dragon had an ice attribute and was at the Terror grade. To the Zhou back in school, it was an almost invincible existence, but now, he could directly look down on it. Seeing the White Dragon spew out an ice fog that resembled a cold wave, Zhou threw a punch at it. Powerful essence energy swept the ice fog away. Zhou originally thought that the Terror-grade White Dragon would only be killed if his punch landed on it. However, the outcome surprised Zhou. After he killed the White Dragon with one punch, its body shattered like ice from a heavy blow. It looked like it was dead. Zhou couldn't see the White Dragon's existence with his eyes, but within Truth Listener's ability, a White Dragon's figure appeared in Zhou mind. It was still in its original spot. Zhou looked carefully again and used some skills that enhanced his eyesight. He even used Dr. Darkness's eyes of penetration, but he still couldn't see the White Dragon's existence. After dispelling Truth Listener's ability, Zhou couldn't hear anything when he used his ears to listen. It was as though there was nothing there. The other companion beasts that enhanced their hearing also found it difficult to discover the White Dragon's figure. Only Truth Listener's ability could discover its existence. It was as though the White Dragon's figure was a ghost. Ordinary people couldn't see a ghost at all. Only people with yin-yang eyes could see it. What the hell is this? Could it be that dimensional creatures have ghosts? The more Zhou looked at the White Dragon's shattered body, the stranger he found it. Just as Zhou was thinking, the ghost-like White Dragon moved and charged at him. When it moved, it was silent and didn't cause any spatial fluctuations. It was really like a ghost. Apart from Truth Listener's ability, no other power could discover the White Dragon's existence. Even sure you couldn't discover it. Zhou had tried all sorts of other powers, but when the White Dragon moved, he couldn't discover it either. However, when the White Dragon approached Zhou, he felt his heart palpitate. With Zhou's present strength, even if he stood still, ordinary terror creatures couldn't seriously injure him. Now, the white dragon had actually made him react naturally to danger. This was unbelievable. Thankfully, it was only in-game. Zhou didn't dodge. He wanted to see what the Terragrade white dragon could do to him. In fact, deep in Zhou heart, he had another thought. However, even he didn't dare face it. He wanted to know what abilities the white dragon had. This was because Wang Mingyuan had fused with the white dragon, so he naturally had the white dragon's abilities. Zhou body was so strong that it was almost comparable to a calamity creature at the human stage. In theory, it was very difficult for a Terragrade creature to deal a destructive blow to him. The white dragon rushed in front of Zhou, but like a real ghost, it passed through Zhou body without leaving any wounds on him. However, after the white dragon passed through Zhou body, the blood-colored avatar suddenly fell to the ground and the game screen went black. Chapter 1682. What's that? Zhou was alarmed. Although his true level was at the Terragrade, it was very rare for a Terragrade creature to kill him. What was even stranger was that apart from Truth Listener, no one could see that thing. This was the most terrifying thing. If an enemy had such an ability, wouldn't they be able to kill whoever they wanted? Ignoring the fact that it was difficult to guard against it while sleeping, even if one didn't sleep and just stared at it, they would still be silently killed. They wouldn't even know how they died. Even Shiryu, who could analyze all sorts of laws, couldn't sense the existence of that thing. This was a little terrifying. After entering Dragon Gate Grotto again, Zhou wanted to figure out what it was. After entering the dungeon again, the white dragon returned to its original appearance. From the looks of it, it hadn't really died and turned into a ghost. The ghost-like thing was likely one of its abilities. After killing the white dragon again, the ghost-like white dragon appeared again. Just like last time, it silently charged at Zhou. This time, Zhou chose to dodge. The ghost white dragon's speed naturally couldn't match Zhou's. It chased after him, but it couldn't keep up with his speed. As Zhou dodged, he observed the white dragon and realized that in this strange state, it didn't seem to use any other skills. All it did was try to burrow into Zhou's body. He summoned Tyrant Behemoth and got it to face the ghost white dragon. However, Tyrant Behemoth couldn't see the ghost white dragon at all. Even under Zhou's orders, Tyrant Behemoth used all its strength to strike the ghost white dragon, but it was as though it had struck air. As for the ghost white dragon, it seemed to pass through a wall as it passed through Tyrant Behemoth's body. Tyrant Behemoth immediately died and collapsed to the ground. This time, Zhou saw it clearly. The moment the ghost white dragon passed through Tyrant Behemoth's body, it transformed into a humanoid ghost creature. This thing looks very similar to Teacher. Zhou looked at the ghost creature's appearance. It was surprisingly similar to Wang Mingyuan's mutated appearance, but it was even more inhuman than Wang Mingyuan. Instead, it looked like the legendary Dragon Man with a dragon head and a human body. It was extremely strange. The time the ghost creature maintained its Dragon Man appearance was very short. Not long after passing through Tyrant Behemoth's body, it transformed into a ghost white dragon. Zhou made some more attempts and realized that all sorts of companion beasts would die on the spot once the ghost white dragon passed through them. They wouldn't be injured at all, as though their souls had been taken away. Every time the ghost white dragon took the life of a companion beast, it would appear in its Dragon Man form for a moment. He made some more attempts and realized that when it was in the Spectre White Dragon form, apart from Truth Listener, no powers could injure it. However, when it was in the Dragon Man form, some powers could injure it. For example, the power of the Tao Sutra and the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra could cause harm to him when he was in his Dragon Man form. What a strange ability! After doing all sorts of tests, Zhou had a comprehensive understanding of ghost creatures. Immediately, he used the power of the Tao Sutra and shattered the ghost creature with a punch. Hunted Terror Creature, Exquisite 9 Aperture Dragon. Discovered Essence Energy Crystal, hunting Terragrade Guardian, who crosses the boundary. Zhou stared at the notification on his phone in a daze. He wasn't even in the mood to look at the items that had fallen to the ground. What's going on? Could it be that the Guardian is parasitizing the exquisite 9-aperture dragon's body? Many thoughts flashed through Zhou mind. He was certain that Wang Mingyuan had fused with the Realm Crosser back then. He looked down at the items that had fallen to the ground and realized that apart from the Essence Energy Crystal, there was something Zhou had never seen before. It was something that looked like an ice crystal. Its shape was extremely irregular. It looked like a heart, but it also looked like a skull, but it didn't look like either. On the ice crystal-like object, there were 9 holes of different sizes. The name displayed in-game was Exquisite 9-Aperture. Zhou picked it up and carefully read its information. Exquisite 9-Aperture. Can enlighten companion beasts. Zhou knew these words, but he didn't know what they meant when they were connected together. Does enlightening mean opening up a certain acupuncture point in the body, or is it similar to an epiphany? Zhou only knew that humans had the concept of enlightening their orifices. But that was when a certain person was too slow to learn anything, and one day, he suddenly seemed to understand everything and understood everything with a little bit of guidance. However, Zhou couldn't guess what effects this term had when used on companion beasts. If it was only making companion beasts smarter, it didn't seem to be of much use to Zhou. This was because to him, most companion beasts were just tools. He could control them to fight without needing them to be too smart. Furthermore, Zhou main companion beasts were basically similar to those with high intelligence. It didn't seem like there was a need for them to become smarter. After searching the hidden dungeon, he didn't find anything else. He was almost certain that the Exquisite 9-Aperture was the hidden dungeon's reward. Items in-game had to be used in-game and couldn't be taken out of the game. If they were left in-game, he was afraid that they would be gone after the dungeon refreshed. All Zhou could do was decide which companion beast to use the Exquisite 9-Aperture. Let little infant take a look. Zhou wanted to summon demonic neonate, but he failed to do so. Only then did he recall that demonic neonate was still evolving and couldn't be summoned. In fact, if it was something that awakened intelligence, Zhou had another choice: to give it to the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. That fellow was like a machine that only knew how to kill. It didn't seem to have high intelligence, so if it could become smarter, it would definitely be even more terrifying. Unfortunately, the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General's stats and skills were ultimately a thorn in Zhou heart, so it was best not to let it use it. Demonic neonate is evolving. Forget about the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. Then, who should I give it to? Zhou thought about his companion beasts and finally summoned Truth Listener. Truth Listener's intelligence wasn't low, but it didn't know how to speak, so it gave off the feeling that it wasn't very intelligent. Zhou wasn't sure what use the Exquisite 9-Aperture was. Furthermore, he didn't have a companion beast that he particularly wanted to improve. Giving it to Truth Listener was a good choice. Upon receiving Zhou's order, Truth Listener swallowed the Exquisite 9-Aperture in one mouthful. Then, its body suddenly emitted golden light as the earrings on its 6 ears began to shatter. Is the effect that powerful? Zhou was given a fright. It had been a long time since he had gotten Truth Listener to shatter the earrings. Now that the 6 earrings had shattered, it would be terrible if something happened. The only thing he was thankful for was that he was in-game. Even if something really happened, it wouldn't affect Truth Listener in reality. If the 6 earrings were to shatter in reality, Truth Listener might even have the risk of escaping Zhou's control. This had happened before. Zhou stared intently at the phone screen and watched as Truth Listener's body transformed into a terrifying golden ape after the earrings shattered. Golden light shot out from its body as a violent aura nearly burst out of the screen. End of this chapter. Chapter 1683. As the golden light intensified, the golden ape's body became smaller and smaller as its body gradually transformed into a human's form. Zhouwen had seen Truth Listener's form once before. He felt that it was somewhat similar to the Super Saiyan transformation of a certain protagonist in a comic. However, in that state, Truth Listener was almost about to escape Zhouwen's control and leave his companion beast team. Now, Truth Listener had once again transformed into a wild, blonde warrior. It was unknown if it was because he was in-game, but this time, Zhouwen didn't feel like he had lost contact with Truth Listener. Even with all 6 earrings destroyed and him in human form, the connection between him and Truth Listener was still very clear. It wasn't as faint as when he summoned Truth Listener in reality. On Truth Listener's head, 9 strange beams of light spewed out. They looked like 9 holes, but in fact, it was just an illusion because the light source was too intense. The 9 spots of light corresponded to the 9 holes of the 9 orifices' exquisite body. Roar! The 9 spots of light on its head lit up at the same time like the final eruption of a volcano. The light was so bright that one couldn't open their eyes. All they could hear was Truth Listener's painful roar. After the light gradually weakened, Zhouwen could see the scene in-game again. Truth Listener, who had transformed into a beautiful, blonde man, stood there. It was half a head taller than Zhouwen. It looked somewhat sinister, but its eyes were surprisingly gentle, as though it was looking at the blood-colored avatar. This feeling was very magical. In the past, when Zhouwen used Truth Listener, he would always feel apprehensive. He was either afraid that it would hit him or that it would sever ties with him. This was the first time he had seen Truth Listener standing silently in front of him with all its abilities activated after the earrings shattered. Zhouwen opened Truth Listener's information panel and checked its current stats and level. Truth Listener, Calamity Grade, Evolvable, Life Providence, Omnipotent Ears Life Soul, Evil Nullification Wheel of Destiny, Nirvana of Ultimate Hell Terror Form, Holy Evil, S-Grade, Calamity Domain, Evil Annihilation, Heavenly Realm, Strength, 999 Speed, 999 Constitution, 999 Essence Energy, 999 Talent Skill, Truth Listener, Indestructible Golden Body, Evil Warding, 9 Extremes Companion Form, Earring Wow, a Heaven Realm's stats can actually reach 999. Zhouwen's face was filled with envy and surprise. He had yet to advance to the Calamity grade, so the upper limit of his attributes was 99. At the Mortal grade, he would be able to break through to 100 points, reaching a maximum of 199 points. The lowest stat at Hell stage was 200. As for the highest, Zhouwen wasn't sure. He guessed that it was 400 or 999, but the stat of 999 at the Heaven stage was truly terrifying. If the North Star's Purple Star Lord also had such attributes, it would not be strange for him to be able to blast through the Hell-level Chaos Egg. Of course, Zhouwen felt that such stats weren't something every companion beast could achieve. After all, many companion beasts had limited talent. They might not be able to advance to the Heaven Realm, and even if they advanced to the Heaven Realm, their stats might not be full. From Zhouwen's point of view, a stat value of 999 was likely the maximum stat at the Heaven Realm stage. He guessed that Demonic Neonate would have such stats when she advanced to the Heaven Realm stage. It was hard to say for the other companion beasts. Companion beasts that could also evolve had differences in quality. Zhouwen really wanted to summon Truth Listener in reality, but when he thought about how he was surrounded by disciples of the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace, he decided against it. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Zhouwen left the Ant City dungeon and activated the Big Dipper dungeon. He wanted to see if Truth Listener at the Heaven Realm could defeat Purple Star Lord. How strong is Truth Listener at the Heaven Realm? Zhouwen couldn't wait to see Truth Listener's abilities. When facing Starlord Covetous Wolf, Zhouwen summoned Truth Listener and released his strongest human form. Greed threw a punch as a terrifying explosion of light illuminated the entire Star Palace. Boom! With a casual punch from Truth Listener, Starlord Greed and half of the Star Palace were blasted apart. Looking at the ruined Starlord Greed, Zhou Wen's mouth gaped open for a long time. This is too King violent. Zhou Wen muttered inwardly as his face beamed with joy. Starlord Colossal Gate was instantly killed without any suspense. Zhou Wen originally imagined that Starlord Lu Xiyuan, who had the ability to reflect damage, might bring some trouble to a purely strength-type companion beast like Truth Listener, or it was very likely that Zhou Wen would need to take action personally. In the beginning, Zhou Wen was still thinking that although Truth Listener was strong, it still needed to rely on him, its owner, to clear the Big Dipper dungeon. However, the outcome left Zhou Wen dumbfounded. Truth Listener's punch directly blasted Starlord Lu Xiyuan. What damage? What not to fight head-on? It was all King bullshit. In front of the violent Truth Listener, there was nothing that couldn't be resolved with a punch. If there was, he would give it another punch. Civil Star Lord Lianzhen, and Star Lord Military Star Lord were instantly killed. The staircase in front of the Army Destroyer Star Palace that could make one lose their essence energy couldn't stop Truth Listener. There was no need for Zhou Wen's Teacher Domain's powers to restrain the taboo power. Truth Listener casually walked up to the Army Destroyer Star Palace before punching Army Destroyer into smithereens. Zhou Wen finally understood what it meant to be able to defeat all with brute force. Truth Listener didn't have many strange abilities, but its strength was practically invincible. Of course, Zhou Wen wasn't naive enough to believe that Truth Listener was that powerful just because of its pure strength. The reason why Truth Listener's pure strength was so strong was because of the premise: the evil nullification, evil holy, evil vanquishing, and evil warding powers. It was because of the existence of these powers that he could fight without any qualms and not be restrained by some strange powers. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easy to pass Starlord Lu Xiyuan's test with his strength. Following behind Truth Listener, Zhou Wen's only use was to use the teleportation array to enter the next Star Palace. After killing Army Destroyer, he activated the hidden teleportation array that led to the Polaris Palace. Such a powerful Truth Listener shouldn't be weaker than Star Lord Polaris, right? When he arrived in front of the Ice Palace again, Zhou Wen still felt a little uneasy when he saw Star Lord Polaris standing with her sword pressed against her chest. Truth Listener was indeed very strong, but Star Lord Polaris wasn't weak either. An existence that could blast apart a Hell-stage Chaos Egg was definitely not to be underestimated. Upon sensing Zhou Wen and Truth Listener's arrival, Star Lord Polaris slowly lowered her head to look at them. At the same time, resplendent starlight began to rise from her body. The entire Star Palace seemed to transform into an endless sea of starlight as starlight illuminated Zhou Wen and company, making them feel as though they were in a sea of starlight. Truth Listener stood in front of Zhou Wen as the golden light on its body flickered like electric currents. Its wild golden eyes seemed to pierce through thousands of starlight as they collided with Star Lord Polaris's gaze. Chapter 1684. Zhou Wen summoned the Chaos Egg to protect his body. In such a battle, all he needed to do was protect his life and not let himself become a burden to Truth Listener. Thousands of starlight interweaved as though the sea was collapsing. It was unimaginably terrifying, as though it was the end of the world. Truth Listener's body emitted golden light as it raised its head to face the endless and omnipresent starlight. It didn't have any intention of dodging or defending. Its legs suddenly exerted strength as its body shot towards the starlight like a cannonball. Damn it! Zhou Wen let out a tragic cry. Although Truth Listener was a pure strength-type companion beast and didn't have the ability to release its strength, just the fluctuations produced when its strength tore through space sent Zhou Wen flying. The essence energy in the Chaos Egg frantically crystallized. Before it could resist the starlight, Half of the essence energy in the Chaos Egg had accumulated. The Chaos Egg tumbled incessantly, making Zhou Wen grumble inwardly. He swore to stay far away from Truth Listener in future battles. Boom! Just as these mixed thoughts were still in Zhou Wen's mind, he heard a terrifying explosion. Truth Listener collided head-on with the great heavenly cycle stellar array's starlight. Countless starlight interweaved with his body like laser blades. The light was abnormally sharp, as though it could slice through everything. However, when it struck Truth Listener's resplendent golden body, it shattered like glass. Truth Listener instantly tore through the layers of starlight and threw a punch at Purple Star Lord, who was standing in the middle of the hall. Purple Star Lord finally moved. He pulled out the mystic ice sword that was stabbed into the ground with one hand. The mystic ice sword that was originally like black ice was instantly filled with starlight. The blade slashed down and collided with Truth Listener's fist. Boom! Golden and blue light erupted, producing a shockwave that shattered the Chaos Egg's interior. It was on the verge of exploding. Zhou Wen was no longer in the mood to pay attention to the battle between Truth Listener and Purple Star Lord. His priority was to survive. Otherwise, once he died, the game would be over. It would be useless no matter how strong Truth Listener was. It was clearly impossible for him to continue surviving by relying on the Chaos Egg's strength. Zhou Wen's mind raced as he thought of how he could survive a little longer. Although the teacher domain could play a certain role, defense wasn't its forte, so it wasn't of much use. Apart from the Sure domain and the Chaos Egg, Zhou Wen still had two domain-level powers. One was the Human Sovereign Sacrificial domain. This was clearly not suitable for the present situation. The other was the Boundless Sword Realm. However, under normal circumstances, the Boundless Sword Realm was used for attacking. Moreover, the Boundless Sword Realm was only at the Mortal Realm level. It was very difficult to compete with the power of the Great Heavenly Star Formation at the Heaven Realm level. However, with Sure Yu's help, Zhou Wen acutely discovered an opportunity. Originally, no matter how the man-level Boundless Sword domain changed, it was impossible for it to compete with the Great Heavenly Cycle Stellar Array. However, because Truth Listener had attracted most of the starlight, it gave the Boundless Sword domain a chance. This sliver of possibility was because Zhou Wen understood the major Heavenly Cycle Stellar Array very well. He had even used it as a blueprint to create the minor Heavenly Cycle Stellar Array. This allowed him to think of a solution that wasn't really a solution. Whether I live or die, I can only fight. Zhou Wen gritted his teeth and crazily circulated the Qi refinement art. Countless sword pill particles erupted and surrounded the Chaos Egg. The sword pill particles were also arranged in the form of a heavenly cycle. It was the minor Heavenly Cycle Stellar Array that Zhou Wen had created. If it was used to deal with ordinary natural disasters, the minor Heavenly Cycle Stellar Array formed by the sword pill particles could be said to be indestructible. However, it was easily destroyed in Purple Star Lord's Great Heavenly Cycle Stellar Array. However, the sword pill particles weren't really destroyed. They were a force that had both ethereal and corporeal characteristics. They looked like they had been destroyed, but in fact, they had only transformed into virtual particles. In theory, sword pill particles were truly indestructible existences. Of course, the sword pill particles that had transformed into virtual particles were temporarily useless. Zhou Wen had to last until the sword pill particles turned into corporeal particles again. If it were any other time, it would be impossible for Zhou Wen to condense too many sword pill particles at once. However, the Chaos Egg was filled with essence energy crystals. Furthermore, each essence energy crystal was stacked with hundreds of millions of essence energy crystals. The amount of essence energy was astonishing. Zhou Wen directly attempted to use himself as a medium, or rather, a transit station. He used the Qi refinement art to crazily absorb the essence energy crystals before transforming them into sword pill particles to form the minor Heavenly Cycle Stellar Array to resist the terrifying forces of the outside world. After all, Zhou body was only at the Terra grade. If massive amounts of essence energy were to be sucked into his body, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand it. However, Zhou had no choice but to place his hopes on the Qi refinement art. The Qi refinement art was a super-rich essence energy art. Ever since he cultivated it, Zhou had devoured countless essence energy crystals to cultivate to such a level. In the past, Zhou would feel the pinch, but now, he only hoped that the Qi refinement art's appetite was huge enough to completely convert the essence energy crystals he absorbed into sword pill particles. A stacked essence energy crystal with hundreds of millions of essence energy crystals was already enough to explode Zhou fragile terror body. Now, he had absorbed thousands of essence energy crystals into his body. All Zhou could do was silently pray for Tiantian's blessings. Zhou didn't wish to absorb that much, but if he didn't, the constantly accumulating essence energy crystals would cause the chaos egg to explode. Terrifying essence energy surged in Zhou body, making him feel like his body was about to be crushed and explode. He couldn't help but howl. Zhou believed that his body was about to explode, but he didn't. Amidst the pain that felt like his body was being completely crushed to pieces, Zhou managed to withstand it. This wasn't to say that Zhou body was very strong, but because the Qi refinement art had forcefully guided the violent essence energy to flow crazily in Zhou body, transforming it into a large number of sword pill particles. Zhou body seemed to be repeatedly jumping from the gates of hell. Every time Zhou thought that his body was about to explode, the Qi refinement art would transform a large number of sword pill particles out, allowing Zhou, who had one foot in the gates of hell, to jump out again. Although the Qi refinement art was very impressive, there were just too many essence energy crystals. The speed at which they were transformed couldn't keep up with Zhou essence energy absorption. Just as Zhou thought he was doomed, the boundless sword domain suddenly underwent a strange change. Although this change was strange, it wasn't a coincidence. Apart from transforming a large number of sword pill particles, forming the largest boundless sword domain in history, Zhou was also constantly using the master domain to observe Purple Star Lord's major heavenly cycle stellar array. At the same time, he adjusted the minor heavenly cycle stellar array that the sword pill particles arranged. The Hellstage master domain was much more powerful than before. The things that could be analyzed were naturally far more than before. Chapter 1685. A large number of sword pill particles followed Zhou will and arranged themselves in the form of the minor heavenly cycle sword array. As Zhou continued inferring, the sword pill particles arrangement became more and more orderly. Just as Zhou body was about to collapse, a large number of sword pill particles suddenly seemed to possess life and consciousness as they automatically began to circulate. All the particles in the sword pellet seemed to be attracted by a magnet and gathered together. However, this gathering wasn't random. Instead, it was based on the minor heavenly cycle sword array's arrangement, but it didn't completely follow the rules. It was as though it instinctively followed some strange rules. In an instant, all the sword pill particles were tightly connected, leaving no gaps in the middle as though they had become a natural entity. The sword pill particles were extremely small to begin with. Even if they were arranged together under Zhou control, it was inevitable that there would be gaps in the middle. However, there were no gaps between the sword pill particles. It was as though they were originally a complete, large-scale sword pill particle. However, the sword pill particles weren't in the shape of a sword or a ball. Instead, they were arranged in the shape of an egg that enveloped the chaos egg, constantly resisting the external attack. Zhou was surprised to discover that the sword domain had advanced to the hell stage. Furthermore, it was crazily extracting essence energy from his body. The egg-shaped sword pill that enveloped Zhou became larger and larger. The sword domain that had advanced to the hell stage originally couldn't compete with Purple Star Lord's strength. However, due to the Qi refinement art's characteristic of absorbing essence energy and the infinite essence energy in the chaos egg, the sword domain became stronger. As long as there was essence energy, the sword domain seemed to be infinitely stronger. What was lacking in quality could be made up for with quantity. Furthermore, the sword pill particles had the undying characteristic. They would only become stronger. Bullets could penetrate steel plates, but they couldn't penetrate a 1,000-meter-tall mound. Now, the sword pill particles in the sword domain were too dense, and their numbers were increasing. They gradually stabilized the situation while resisting Purple Star Lord's strength. The combination of the Hellstage Chaos Egg and the Hellstage Sword domain produced an unexpected effect, allowing Zhou to gain a foothold in such a terrifying battlefield. As the Sword domain upgraded, Zhou also sensed the changes in the Sword domain's effect. It didn't mean that the Sword domain would really be in the shape of an egg in the future. The egg shape was only because Zhou needed it to be arranged in such a form. If Zhou needed it, he could completely transform it into a sword or other shapes. The true improvement of the sword domain was the effect of the sword pill particles turning into a whole. A chopstick could be easily broken, but a bundle of chopsticks was very difficult to break. Furthermore, the particles of the sword pellet that had turned into a whole were not as simple as a bundle of chopsticks. They had truly condensed into one. Only now did Zhou have the mood to size up the situation on the battlefield. However, all he could see was a sky full of starlight and a constantly flickering golden light. It was so fast that even with Zhou eyesight, he couldn't see their movements clearly. He couldn't even see their figures clearly. Wherever Truth Listener moved, it left behind golden afterimages. In of Zhou, the of. The star of the one of world was a Wen's eyes of the divine Wen Yi. Zhou couldn't see it, but Sure Yu could sense the changes in the laws of power. In Sure Yu's domain, Zhou sensed an extremely domineering force and a brilliant imperial aura constantly colliding. Zhou couldn't see it, but he could sense the changes in the laws of power in the Sure domain. In the Sure domain, Zhou sensed an extremely domineering force constantly colliding with a brilliant imperial aura. Even though Zhou couldn't see it clearly, Sure Yu still constantly replicated the laws of the brilliant imperial aura, allowing the power to become more and more orderly in Zhou's eyes. Even though Zhou couldn't see it clearly, Sure Yu still constantly replicated the laws of the brilliant imperial aura, allowing the power to become more and more orderly in Zhou's eyes. From the looks of the situation, Zhou roughly knew that Sure Yu was about to deduce a new essence energy art. It was a perfect domain power, but Sure Yu had only deduced Purple Star Lord's power and not Truth Listener's power. This left Zhou somewhat puzzled. Is it because Truth Listener's power is difficult to deduce, or is it because I already have the foundation of the minor heavenly cycle array? Zhou guessed inwardly, but he found it difficult to make an accurate judgment. However, regardless, it was an excellent thing for Zhou. This was because as long as Sure Yu deduced Purple Star Lord's essence energy art, he could directly prevent this power from circulating in Sure Yu's domain. Now, Zhou was already looking forward to the day when Sure Yu could stop the massive heavenly cycle stellar array from circulating. Just the thought of heading to Forbidden City to find another Purple Star Lord and stopping her massive heavenly cycle stellar array with a single order in front of her made Zhou wish he could head to Forbidden City immediately. It was clearly not an easy task to deduce Purple Star Lord's essence energy art. Like a spider weaving a web, Sure Yu constantly perfected the nomological web, hoping to connect it into a complete network. However, there were just too many missing parts in the middle. Sure Yu's weaving speed was just too slow. At this speed, it would probably be difficult to fill in all the parts in less than a decade. At that moment, Zhou suddenly felt the massive heavenly cycle stellar array that had gradually turned clear suddenly turn blurry. What was even more terrifying was that in the blurry starlight, 12 mysterious palaces seemed to appear. Each palace seemed to contain a mysterious power that exceeded the mortal world. Furthermore, each palace had its own different style. Some were as mighty as the sea, some were as dangerous as an abyss, some were mysterious and unfathomable, and some were as benevolent as a mountain. The power of each palace was shocking. Just looking at the phantom of the palace nearly made Zhou Wen's will collapse. He felt as though he was an ant under the heavenly Tao. The 12 palaces were like temples that ruled over all things in the universe. Any one of them could dictate the fate of all things. Life and death could be seized with a single thought. At that moment, the 12 palaces came crashing down at the same time. Beneath the palaces was the handsome and wild truth listener with its golden hair fluttering in the wind. This is bad. Zhou Wen sensed the terrifying power in the 12 palaces. Even though it was just the remnant might, the hell-level sword domain outside him had already shattered like scrap metal. It couldn't withstand a single blow. No matter how Zhou Wen extracted his essence energy, he couldn't restore the sword domain. Just as Zhou Wen imagined that he would have to grind the dungeon again, Truth Listener suddenly leaped up. Under the infinite pressure, it charged towards the palace. End of this chapter. Chapter 1686. Purple Star Lord seemed to be an emperor that had existed since ancient times. He looked down on all life from the top of the 12 celestial palaces as though everything in the world was just a toy in his hands. Thearchs are born and the heavens fall. All fates are within the 12 celestial palaces. Nothing in the world can defy them. Looking at Truth Listener, who was defying the heavens, Purple Star Lord slashed down slightly with the mystic ice sword in his hand. The 12 celestial palaces came crashing down as though the universe was suppressed under them. The tiny Truth Listener was like a drop in the ocean beneath the 12 celestial palaces. It was almost negligible. However, Truth Listener's eyes burned like the golden sun. It didn't dodge or hesitate at all. Its burning body stretched its arm to its limit as it punched at the celestial palaces that were crashing down from the sky. Boom! A mysterious celestial palace that represented fate was smashed into pieces by Truth Listener's fist. The wreckage scattered everywhere. Truth Listener was like a tyrant that defied the heavens. It was fearless as it coldly faced the heavens and continued charging into the sky with unstoppable momentum. Rumbling sounds rang out incessantly. Zhou Wen saw mysterious and unfathomable celestial palaces that seemed to have the power to suppress fate being pierced through by Truth Listener. They were reduced to fragments that filled the sky. The scene was shocking, making one feel an inexplicable sense of awe. At the same time, it was as though a flame was burning in one's heart. All the blood in one's body seemed to boil. If the heavens destroy me, I will defy the heavens. If the Tharch slays me, I will kill the Tharch. No one in the universe can control my fate. In Zhou Wen's eyes, Truth Listener was like an ancient god of war that didn't respect the heavens or the gods. It used its body to profane divine might as it shattered the celestial palaces. Every time a celestial palace was shattered, cracks would appear on the mystic ice sword in Purple Star Lord's hand. In the beginning, when a few celestial palaces were shattered, Purple Star Lord was still able to maintain his calm. However, when he saw the celestial palaces shatter in an instant and Truth Listener still tore through the sky in an unstoppable manner, Purple Star Lord's eyes behind his mask gradually turned somewhat alarmed. When the last celestial palace was shattered by Truth Listener, Purple Star Lord's body trembled. The mystic ice sword in his hand shattered, shattering into pieces of ice that scattered everywhere. Truth Listener also arrived in front of Purple Star Lord at that moment. The fist that burned with golden flames blasted at Purple Star Lord in an unreasonable manner. With the 12 celestial palaces shattered, Ziwei Starlord's aura had already weakened to the extreme. He held the remnant sword and slashed at Truth Listener's fist with all his might. However, the instant the fist and sword collided, the remnant sword shattered. The fist that emitted golden light struck his chest. The armor, which was like profound ice, scattered like butterflies, revealing Ziwei Star-Lord's beautiful body and her beautiful face. She was as beautiful as a god, making it impossible for anyone to have any thoughts of blasphemy against her. However, Truth Listener's fist mercilessly slammed into the beautiful face, instantly blasting it apart. The head that was as beautiful as art exploded, and blood bloomed like chrysanthemum petals. Purple Star-Lord's headless body plummeted from the sky, transforming into points of mystic light that dissipated. Only a strange crystal landed on the ground. It emitted a resplendent starlight, like the eternal Polaris in the sky. Calamity Creature hunted, Purple Star-Lord. Discovered Emperor Star Crystal. He's really dead. Zhou was pleasantly surprised as he looked at Truth Listener in the sky that resembled an ancient fiend celestial. Truth Listener's strength shocked even him. As expected of a companion beast from the heavenly realm. It's too powerful and violent. Zhou reached out to pick up the Emperor Star Crystal on the ground and looked at its stats while holding back his surprise. Emperor Star Crystal, Emperor Life Star. Can receive the help of heaven and earth. Zhou looked at the simple line of information, but he was momentarily at a loss as to what it meant. Without a doubt, this Emperor Star Crystal was a treasure of this hidden dungeon. However, it was difficult to understand what it was used for. From the literal meaning, it meant that emperors were chosen by heaven and earth. Therefore, their life providence was extremely noble. Even heaven and earth would help them. However, what was the use of such a thing? Could it be that this thing can make the person who possesses it become the chosen son of heaven? From then on, everything will be smooth sailing for them. They can get whatever they want, and any monster they kill will drop a divine artifact? Not only will they not die from jumping off a cliff, but they can also have a fortuitous encounter? Zhou couldn't help but recall the legend of an ancient emperor. Legend had it that there was a chosen son of heaven who fought with a figure comparable to a transmigrator for power. This chosen son of heaven was originally retreating in defeat and was almost destroyed, but who knew that a meteorite would fall from the sky and wipe out the enemy's army, making him the final victor. This was nothing more than a chosen son of heaven. Zhou didn't dare hope that he would have such luck. He only hoped that he wouldn't be too unlucky. He attempted to absorb the Emperor Star Crystal, but it indicated that Zhou wasn't a companion beast and couldn't use the Emperor Star Crystal. Holy **T. This thing is for companion beasts? Zhou was rendered speechless. His dream of getting whatever he wanted was instantly shattered. If only companion beasts can use it, who should I use it on? Demonic Neonate is still evolving, so I can only choose another companion beast to use it on. Zhou was somewhat vexed. There was too little information on the Emperor Star Crystal, so he didn't know what use it had. If he gave it to a random companion beast, the benefits the companion beast obtained might not be as strong as expected. It might even have the opposite effect. If this thing was a treasure that could change one's life providence and change the life providence that was most compatible with a companion beast, what was the point of becoming an emperor life providence? In terms of combat strength, Truth Listener was now Zhou most important combat strength. He naturally had to give it something good, but as he didn't know what use the Emperor Star Crystal had, Zhou didn't dare take the risk with Truth Listener. After some thought, Zhou summoned Tyrant Behemoth. This fellow had already advanced to the Calamity grade and had 2 life providences: Infinite Strength and Mountain River Devourer. Even if it changed to a useless life providence, its combat strength wouldn't be greatly reduced. Furthermore, its name had the word June in it. It could barely be related to an emperor, so Zhou planned on using it to test the waters. After Tyrant Behemoth was summoned, it swallowed the Emperor Star Crystal under Zhou's orders. When the crystal entered its stomach, a blob of black starlight bloomed from Tyrant Behemoth's stomach. Soon, it enveloped Tyrant Behemoth's entire body in black light as though it had transformed into a black hole. Zhou heard tyrant behemoth's roar coming from the black hole before it quickly fell silent. Only the black hole-like light constantly distorted and changed. Chapter 1687. When the black hole-like light vanished, tyrant behemoth appeared in Zhou Wen's vision again. Zhou Wen was surprised to discover that tyrant behemoth had changed drastically. The originally tall tyrant behemoth had shrunk significantly. It was now only about 3 meters tall. Compared to before, it was clearly smaller, but it had become more muscular. If tyrant behemoth looked a little bloated and clumsy in the past, then the current tyrant behemoth looked like a muscular monster without any excess fat. Furthermore, tyrant behemoth's body had undergone some changes. Its skin and flesh looked extremely black, as though it was made of black iron. It gave off an indestructible feeling. Instead of saying that tyrant behemoth was a living creature of flesh and blood, it was more like a black iron monster filled with explosive and destructive power. What was even stranger was that tyrant behemoth, which originally only had a pair of horns, had another horn grow in the middle of its head. The horn looked somewhat similar to a unicorn's horn. It was straight and spiral-shaped, and there was a strange mystic light flowing inside. Zhou Wen opened tyrant behemoth's information to see how its stats and skills had changed, but he realized that even tyrant behemoth's name had changed. Imperial Lord Behemoth. Calamity Grade, Evolvable, Life Providence. Immense Strength, Devouring Mountains and Rivers, Imperial Horoscope Life Soul. Violent Crown Wheel of Destiny. Absolute Strength, S-Grade, Terror Transformation. Tyrant Calamity Domain. Dominating Domain, Mortal Grade, Strength. 199 Speed. 199 Constitution. 199 Essence Energy. 199 Talent Skill. Mountain Devouring, Rampage, Behemoth, Armor Penetration, Piercing, Laceration, Poisonous Fangs, Bite, Ever Victorious, Unstoppable Companion. Form. Boxing Glove. Zhou Wen was slightly disappointed when he saw that tyrant behemoth's domain was still at the mortal grade. However, he had an additional imperial horoscope in his life providence, and his life soul had changed from the violent crown to the violent crown. His stats had reached the limits of the mortal grade, but it wasn't completely unchanged. The changes to his stats and skills aren't huge. I wonder how his actual combat strength is, Zhou Wen mumbled inwardly. The Big Dipper dungeon's level was high enough. Logically speaking, the treasures dropped by a hidden dungeon shouldn't be bad. Zhou Wen originally believed that he could at least advance it to Hell grade, but he never expected it to be mortal grade. After exiting the Big Dipper dungeon, Zhou Wen originally planned on finding a dungeon to test the difference between Imperial Lord Behemoth and Tyrant Behemoth. Before Zhou Wen could open the new dungeon, he heard a commotion coming from the front of the team. "Mr. Zhou, I'm afraid we have to change our route," Shiraishi Satomi rushed over and said to Zhou Wen with a heavy expression. "What happened over there?" As Zhou Wen asked, he used Truth Listener's ability to scan the area ahead. There was a canyon in front of them, and there was a river that was half a person's height flowing through it. In the middle of the river, there was a giant beast that seemed to be asleep. Shiraishi Satomi whispered helplessly, "The route we designed originally avoided some dangerous areas. According to our investigations, there aren't any large dimensional zones near this canyon, but for some reason, there's a water-repellent golden eye beast here. I'm afraid we can't continue on this path." Seeing that Zhou Wen didn't seem to know anything about the water-repellent golden eye beast, Shiraishi Satomi continued explaining. The water-repellent golden eye beast might not be famous inland, but overseas, everyone knows about its ferocity. It has once destroyed several large islands. Even the strongest factions overseas can't do a thing to it. Not only is this beast at the Calamity grade, but it might even have reached the peak of the Calamity grade. Furthermore, this water-repellent golden eye beast is very likely the one overseas. This is the water-repellent golden eye beast overseas. Sei Gasakai also walked back and said with a heavy expression, "In the past, when I was out traveling, I once saw its ferocity on Ryukyu Island. With a single stomp, an island that spanned hundreds of kilometers was trampled into the bottom of the sea. Its divine might was unparalleled. It was even more terrifying than the calamity-grade creatures that were ranked on the Rubik's Cube rankings. Thankfully, the reconnaissance team ahead discovered it ahead of time and didn't wake it up. We can still make it if we change our path now. However, we will have to walk a few hundred more kilometers before we can circle around this place. What's the water-repellent golden eye beast's type? What abilities does it have? Zhou asked after some thought. Its body is extremely powerful. Back when Ryukyu Island gathered the strength of the island, it didn't dodge at all. Even its scales weren't damaged at all. Furthermore, it has the ability to control the ocean's flow. It can stir up huge waves. I don't know if it has any other abilities, Gasikai answered after some thought. Then there's no need to change paths. Retreat 15 kilometers and leave it to me. It was rare to encounter a calamity creature that had broken through the seal, so Zhou naturally wasn't willing to let go of such a good opportunity. With Truth Listener, a nearly invincible calamity-grade existence, even if the water-repellent golden eye beast was at the heaven realm, it was definitely no match for Truth Listener in terms of physical strength. Mr. Zhou, be careful. Gasikai didn't say anything else as he arranged for the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace disciples to retreat in an orderly manner. However, after retreating a few kilometers, the water-repellent golden eye beast woke up and stood up from the water. Its pair of strange golden crystal-like eyes looked over. The golden light in its eyes was like two small suns. Its entire body was covered in scarlet scales. Its head was like a dragon's and its body was like a lion's. Its body was more than 10 meters long. Just by standing there, it exuded a terrifying sense of oppression. As its strange eyes swept across them, the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace disciples with weaker mental fortitude were so frightened that their legs went limp. From the looks of it, this beast has long discovered our arrival. It's just pretending to be asleep. Zhou knew that a calamity-grade creature like this had very sharp ears and eyes. How could it not discover them? Although the water-repellent golden eye beast's aura was terrifying, Zhou was used to seeing powerful calamity-grade creatures. He could roughly guess that this fellow hadn't reached the level of Purple Star-Lord, but it was much stronger than the average mortal stage. It might be a Hellgrade calamity-grade creature. Seeing that the water-repellent golden eye beast was about to charge over, Zhou summoned Imperial Lord Behemoth with a thought. He could use this water-repellent golden eye beast to test Imperial Lord Behemoth's combat strength. Being a strength type, Imperial Lord Behemoth had coarse skin and thick flesh. Even if it wasn't the water-repellent golden eye beast's match, it wouldn't be instantly killed. Once it was no match for the water-repellent golden eye beast, he could just release Truth Listener. After Imperial Lord Behemoth appeared, the water-repellent golden eye beast that was about to charge over actually stopped in its tracks. It rolled its pair of golden eyes and sized up Imperial Lord Behemoth, as though it felt that Imperial Lord Behemoth wasn't to be trifled with. Upon seeing this, Zhou felt even more assured. He ordered Imperial Lord Behemoth to charge at the water-repellent golden eye beast. Imperial Lord Behemoth exerted strength with its feet, instantly causing the ground hundreds of meters around to collapse. With a huge sonic boom, it charged at the water-repellent golden eye beast. Chapter 1688. Emperor Lord Behemoth appeared in front of the water-repellent golden-eyed beast as though it had teleported. Its iron-like claws struck at the water-repellent golden-eyed beast's head. The water-repellent golden-eyed beast roared and didn't dodge. It opened its mouth full of jagged teeth and bit at Emperor Lord Behemoth. Emperor Lord Behemoth was about 3 meters tall. It was slightly taller than ordinary humans, but it appeared too small in front of the 10-meter-long water-repellent golden-eyed beast. If this bite landed, most of Emperor Lord Behemoth's body would probably be bitten into its mouth. It might even be swallowed alive. Everything happened in a split second. The disciples of the Nitin flying immortal palace couldn't see what had happened. Even existences like Sei Gasakai could only see two figures, one red and one black, colliding. Then, a shock wave that resembled a nuclear explosion surged over. Sei Gasakai, Han Shinsakura, and company couldn't help but turn pale with fright. Although they were still 10 kilometers away from the battlefield, the shock wave enveloped a huge area. They weren't afraid, but most of the ordinary disciples of the Nitin flying immortal palace would probably be killed by the shock wave. Seeing the shock wave that swept up the soil and rocks, the ordinary disciples were so shocked that they forgot to escape. In fact, even if they used all their strength to escape, it was impossible for them to escape the shockwave's range. Just as countless disciples were in despair, they saw the shockwave that resembled a huge wave suddenly vanish. Sand and rocks fell from the sky, forming a huge circular slope with the battlefield as the center. Everyone looked over in shock and saw a figure standing in front of the circular slope. It was none other than Zhou. The terrifying shockwave seemed to come to a halt when it reached him, falling like dust. It was as though Zhou was a god that couldn't be blasphemed. Nothing in the world could violate him. Zhou had only used the sure domain to seal the power laws in the area, preventing the shockwave from continuing. This also meant that the water-repellent golden-eyed beast hadn't reached the heaven realm. Otherwise, the sure domain wouldn't have been able to completely seal the power of a perfect domain. On the battlefield, the Emperor Lord Behemoth's claws grabbed the water-repellent golden eyes beast's upper and lower jaws, forcefully blocking its bite, preventing the water-repellent golden eyes beast from closing its fang-filled mouth. The water-repellent golden-eyed beast exerted force with its 4 claws and charged forward with all its might, pushing the Emperor Behemoth's body back. The Emperor Behemoth's legs plowed a deep mark on the ground. Roar! Just when everyone thought that Emperor Lord Behemoth was no match for the water-repellent golden eyes beast, the 3 strange horns on Emperor Lord Behemoth's head emitted a mysterious light, turning into the shape of a black crown. The horn in the middle emitted a mysterious light, like a black jewel on the crown. The mysterious light emitted was like a black iron armor that enveloped Emperor Lord Behemoth's body. With the appearance of the crown, Emperor Behemoth's eyes turned blood-red, and its body swelled up, instantly turning into a giant beast that was tens of meters tall. Its front and back feet blocked the attack of the water-repellent golden-eyed beast. The 2 monster-level existences were locked in a stalemate, wrestling like prehistoric monsters. Neither of them took half a step back, but the ground beneath their hooves cracked and cracked like an earthquake. Zhou looked at Emperor Lord Behemoth in surprise. This fellow's strength was stronger than Zhou had imagined. The water-repellent golden-eyed beast was undoubtedly at the hell stage. The Emperor Lord Behemoth, which was only at the mortal stage, was actually able to resist the power of the hell stage without being at a disadvantage. Just this point made Zhou feel that it was worth it to use the Emperor's Star. What surprised Zhou even more was that Emperor Lord Behemoth gradually gained the upper hand. Bit by bit, it pried open the water-repellent golden-eyed beast's mouth that was about to close. The water-repellent golden-eyed beast let out a strange cry as it stomped the ground with its 4 claws, hoping to knock Emperor Lord Behemoth away. However, no matter how it tried, Emperor Lord Behemoth's body that emitted a mysterious light didn't budge at all. It continued slowly opening the water-repellent golden-eyed beast's mouth. Roar! The water-repellent golden-eyed beast roared again as a strange energy fluctuation emitted from its body. The river in the valley seemed to be attracted by some force as it stirred up a huge wave that suddenly swept over. The huge wave instantly drowned Emperor Lord Behemoth's body. It didn't stop at all as it swept up the Nitin flying immortal palace disciples behind it. However, when the wave arrived in front of Zhou, it was like a toilet bowl that had its flush button pressed. All the water flowed down without a single splash touching Zhou's body. The Nitin flying immortal palace disciples were dumbfounded. Although they had long regarded Zhou as one of the top figures among humans, such godlike actions still left them envious. Zhou didn't expand the range of Yu's power to the battlefield. He wanted to see Emperor Lord Behemoth's true combat strength. In the battlefield with surging water and tumbling mud and rocks, the roars of mutated beasts resounded through the world. The Nitin flying Immortal Palace disciples could only see the mud and rocks churning. They couldn't see the battle inside until they heard a shocking scream. The water flow and the mud and rocks that had been swept up instantly fell, revealing the figures of two behemoths. The originally terrifying water-repellent golden-eyed beast's 4 hooves were lifted off the ground by Tyrant Behemoth. Tyrant Behemoth's 2 claws were still holding onto its upper and lower jaws. However, at this moment, the water-repellent golden-eyed beast's mouth had already been stretched to its limit. The corners of its mouth had cracked, and the scales on its face had cracked as blood flowed out. Now, the water-repellent golden-eyed beast was like a kitten or puppy with its mouth torn apart in front of the gigantified Emperor Lord Behemoth. All it could do was struggle and scream. However, no matter how its claws attacked Emperor Lord Behemoth, it only left shallow claw marks on the mystic light armor around Emperor Lord Behemoth's body. And those claw marks almost instantly recovered. Emperor Lord Behemoth didn't seem to feel anything as it ignored the water-repellent golden-eyed beast's final struggle. Bit by bit, it tore its mouth apart, hoping to tear its head into 2. Chi! The water-repellent golden-eyed beast's bloody jaw was torn off. In pain, the water-repellent golden-eyed beast's potential erupted as it struggled with all 4 hooves, breaking the fangs that Emperor Lord Behemoth was holding. Only then did it escape Emperor Lord Behemoth's control and tumbled to the ground. The disciples of the Nitin flying Immortal Palace looked at Emperor Lord Behemoth, who was grabbing its broken teeth and holding its bloody chin in one hand, as though they were looking at a demon king that had walked out of hell. The water-repellent golden-eyed beast, which was almost invincible overseas, had been trampled by Emperor Lord Behemoth like a kitten or puppy. Even its jaw had been torn off. This was terrifying. The typical disciple was envious and yearning, but the elders were secretly glad that Han Shinsakura hadn't listened to their opinions and insisted on heading to guide Ancient City. Now they understood why Han Shinsakura was so insistent. Such a figure and such a companion beast were probably impossible to find even in the 6 families. Zhou thought that the water-repellent golden-eyed beast was probably about to escape. Just as he was about to cooperate with Emperor Lord Behemoth to kill it, he suddenly saw an unbelievable scene. The water-repellent golden-eyed beast didn't escape. Instead, it bent its front hooves and lowered its head at Emperor Lord Behemoth as though it was kneeling until its forehead touched the ground. Chapter 1689. Everyone saw this unbelievable scene. Even Zhou Wen's mouth widened in shock. One had to know that dimensional creatures were very difficult to tame. Ignoring those brainless dimensional creatures, they basically fought to the death. Even those highly intelligent dimensional creatures would self-destruct if they were forced into a corner. Apart from humans with special abilities, it was rare to hear of dimensional creatures being tamed due to defeat. The higher the level of a dimensional creature, the lower the possibility of being tamed. It was unbelievable that this hell-grade water-repellent golden-eyed beast had submitted to a man-grade Empyrean Lord Behemoth. However, the truth was right in front of him. Zhou suddenly thought of a possibility. Could it be that the life providence of the Emperor horoscope had taken effect, causing the water-repellent golden-eyed beast to show an attitude that was originally impossible? The more Zhou thought about it, the more he felt that it was right. In the past, Tyrant Behemoth rarely killed dimensional creatures, nor had he seen any dimensional creature submit to it. Ignoring the calamity grade, such a situation had never happened even to mortal-grade dimensional creatures. Now, Zhou was filled with regret. If he had known that the Emperor's Star was such a powerful thing, he would have given it to Truth Listener. With Truth Listener's strength, It was almost invincible within the Calamity grade. It could have easily defeated a few Calamity grade dimensional creatures and made them submit to guard the entrance of Guide Ancient City. It was useless regretting it now. Thankfully, Empyrean Lord Behemoth was rather impressive. In the future, if he worked hard on it and gave it more resources, even if it couldn't advance to the Heaven Realm stage, it would be quite impressive to reach the Hell stage. A man-grade Empyrean Lord Behemoth could defeat a Hell-grade water-repellent golden-eyed beast. A Hell-grade Empyrean Lord Behemoth might be able to compete with ordinary Heaven Realm dimensional creatures. This trip wasn't a loss. I'll bring the water-repellent golden-eyed beast back to Guide Ancient City to guard the entrance. I'm afraid the 6 families won't dare barge in. Just as Zhou was having a beautiful dream, the Empyrean Lord Behemoth grabbed the water-repellent golden-eyed beast and tore it into 2 with its claws. Then, it threw it into its mouth and chewed on it. Blood splattered everywhere as its mouth was filled with blood. It actually ate. Zhou widened his eyes as he stared blankly at Empyrean Lord Behemoth. He had the urge to slap it twice after seeing a prodigal squander all his wealth. This was a Hell-level fighter, yet he was eaten just like that. This was simply a reckless waste of resources. He should be struck by lightning. However, the Emperor Behemoth didn't feel anything. After chewing a few times, he swallowed it and even burped. Looking at Imperial Lord Behemoth's appearance, Zhou had the urge to cut open its stomach and pull out the water-repellent golden-eyed beast. Unfortunately, it was useless even if he pulled it out. Zhou gritted his teeth in hatred, but the disciples of the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace watched in a daze. The water-repellent golden-eyed beast, which was extremely ferocious overseas, was actually swallowed alive. In their eyes, Empyrean Lord Behemoth had already become synonymous with ferocity and invincibility. Depressed, he recalled Empyrean Behemoth. This fellow had eaten a Hell-level dimensional creature, but it didn't change at all. From Zhou point of view, it was no different from Pigsy eating a ginseng fruit. After setting off again, the disciples and elders of the Nitin Flying Immortal Palace became even more respectful and obedient towards Zhou. Many people even looked at Zhou with burning gazes. It was unknown what they were thinking. Zhou wasn't in the mood to care about what they were thinking. His mind was filled with a question. If the hidden dungeons in-game didn't refresh, could he still obtain Emperor Stars in the hidden dungeons in reality? From the results of his previous research, it was very likely that there was a Purple Star Lord in the North Star Ice Palace in reality. Perhaps he could obtain another Emperor Star in reality. Originally, Zhou no longer had any desire to challenge the Big Dipper dungeon in reality. The Rubik's Cube ranking was meaningless to him. However, this discovery gave Zhou the thought of challenging the Big Dipper Palace again. It wasn't for the ranking, but to obtain an Emperor Star. Let's wait and see. If the hidden dungeons in-game really don't refresh, I can only challenge the Big Dipper Palace in reality again. Zhou had already made up his mind. If he could really obtain another Emperor Star, he could give it to Demonic Neonate or Truth Listener. He only wished he could get a few more. There weren't any accidents along the way. The ordinary dimensional creatures they encountered were also dealt with by Han Shinsakura and company. Zhou finally returned to guide Ancient City with them. The 2 Nitin Flying Immortal Palace disciples who had sent Mo he back arrived at Guide Ancient City half a day later. After asking, Zhou learned that they hadn't sent Mo he back to the family clan of gods. On the way, they had encountered people from the family clan of gods. Mo he had already returned with them. To Zhou surprise, Mo he got them to bring one back and specifically said that it was for Zhou. Zhou opened the box and realized that there was only a piece of paper inside. There was a number written on the paper. It was obvious that it was a cell phone number. Zhou roughly guessed what Mo he meant. The 2 of them had previously made a bet. If Mo he lost, He had to tell Zhou why the family clan of gods had to have the people from the Nitin flying immortal palace. However, Zhou didn't ask back then because he felt that it was useless. If he wasn't willing to tell him, he could give a random reason. It wasn't difficult. From the looks of it, he planned on fulfilling his promise and telling him the secret. After Zhou introduced Sei Gasakai, Han Shinsakura, and company to Li Xian, he got him to make arrangements for them. He returned to the yard and called the number he had left behind. Zhou. After the call connected, He's voice sounded before Zhou could say a word. How do you know it's me? Zhou was somewhat hesitant. He's tone clearly confirmed that it was him, but he hadn't made a sound. Could it be that he had the ability to follow the signal to spy on him? You are the only one who knows this number, he said emotionlessly. I see. You left me this number to tell me the secret of the Nitin flying immortal palace, right? Zhou came to a realization and asked directly. Although I'm not a good person, I will still do as I promised. After a pause, he continued, Actually, the family clan of gods doesn't want all the disciples of the Nitin flying immortal palace. Who do you want? Sei Gasakai or Han Shinsakura? Zhou asked. Neither. It's Shiraishi Satomi, he answered. Why? Zhou was somewhat surprised. Although Shiraishi Satomi's talent wasn't bad, Han Shinsakura and Sei Gasakai weren't inferior to her. Furthermore, their cultivation levels were already above hers. Only she can obtain Amaterasu's companion beast. He's answer alarmed Zhou. Amaterasu and Tsukuyami came from the same divine system. Furthermore, legend had it that Amaterasu and Tsukuyami were twins. Chapter 1690. In that pantheon, Tsukuyami represented the moon, while Amaterasu represented the sun. They were both supreme gods, but Amaterasu was ranked ahead of Tsukuyami. Zhou had seen how powerful Tsukuyami was. If there really was an Amaterasu companion beast, even Zhou would be very tempted. However, Zhou was still skeptical about whether there really was an Amaterasu companion beast. After all, it was in existence like Tsukuyami. If Tsukuyami was already so powerful, Amaterasu was probably not inferior to Tsukuyami. With humanity's current standards, it was temporarily impossible to kill Amaterasu and obtain a companion beast. Now that he told him that Shiraishi Satomi could obtain a Amaterasu companion beast, Zhou didn't believe it. What's so special about Shiraishi Satomi? Zhou asked doubtfully. Shiraishi Satomi's life providence, life soul, and wheel of destiny are perfectly compatible with Amaterasu. Only she can obtain Amaterasu's favor, he answered. What do you mean? From He's tone, it seemed like Shiraishi Satomi didn't need to kill Amaterasu to obtain a companion beast. This isn't within the scope of our bet. Think about it yourself, he said with a faint smile. Can you give me some hints? Zhou didn't mind as he asked casually. Iase Island, we're even. He hung up after saying that. Zhou put down the phone and thought for a moment before going to say Gasakai. Coincidentally, Han Shinsakura and Shiraishi Satomi were there, so he told them what he had told him. Iase Island? The three of them were at a loss when they heard that. You don't know where Iase Island is? Zhou asked in puzzlement. They were all natives overseas. If even they didn't know where Iase Island was, Zhou suspected that he was joking with him. There's no island overseas called Iase Island. In legends, the Iase Divine Palace is the residence of god Amaterasu. It's called Takamajiehara, but that's only a legendary place. There's no corresponding location. Han Shinsakura thought for a moment and said, Could the information he gave us be wrong? Shiraishi Satomi said with a bitter smile, Perhaps they really made a mistake. My life providence, life soul, and wheel of destiny have nothing to do with the sun. How can it be perfectly compatible with God Amaterasu's attribute? Jowun nodded. Although he was somewhat interested in Amaterasu, this interest was built on Tsukuyomi's existence. It didn't matter if he could obtain a Amaterasu companion beast. Even if he couldn't, there was nothing to be disappointed about. Just as he was about to return to continue his game, he heard Sei Gasakai say, "Takama Jiehara is indeed a legendary existence. There's no corresponding place in reality. However, when I was traveling at sea, I did encounter a place that was suspected to be Takama Jiehara." Seeing Jowun look at him, Sei Gasakai continued, "Takama Jiehara, Reed Plain China, and Netherworld Kingdom are the three domains that form the universal gods. Takama Jiehara is also known as Cloud China or Sky Island. Legend has it that it's an island floating in the clouds above the sea. It's not seen by mortals, and it's where the gods live. Once, after I experienced a storm at sea, the sky opened up and the clouds dissipated. I vaguely saw a huge island appear in the sky, but moments later, the island in the sky disappeared. I once went to the sky to check, but I didn't find any traces of the island. Therefore, I thought it was a mirage." With that said, Sei Gasakai pondered for a moment before continuing, "But later, I heard from some friends that they had seen the mirage-like island in the sky at the same spot. Furthermore, when the island appeared, they attempted to approach the island, but they were pushed out by a powerful invisible force. After the island disappeared, they went there again, but there was nothing. We suspect that it might be the legendary Takama Jiehara, but we haven't been able to confirm it." "Interesting. Where's that island?" At that moment, Jowun was truly interested. After all, it was a dimensional zone of a divine lord. Perhaps he could download the dungeon and grind to his heart's content. Sei Gasakai told him the location, and Jowun secretly memorized it. He could visit it when he had the time in the future. Now, Jowun wasn't in the mood to do such things. All he wanted to know was if the hidden dungeon would respawn, and if he could obtain a second Emperor star. There was something more important. Jowun planned on getting Truth Listener to try and see if it could kill Small Buddha Temple's three-faced Buddha. The hope of advancing the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra to calamity was probably in Small Buddha Temple. However, the three-faced Buddha was just too powerful. With Jowun's strength alone, he temporarily had no hope. Truth Listener's advancement to the heaven stage gave Jowun a glimmer of hope. After returning home, Jowun clicked open the Small Buddha Temple dungeon again and entered it again. He couldn't help but feel nervous. Truth Listener had been obtained from Small Buddha Temple, so Jowun had no idea if it could defeat the three-faced Buddha. This time, Jowun directly circulated the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra and entered the temple hall. The three-faced Buddha didn't react at all and wouldn't attack people who cultivated the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra. This time, Jowun was just there to watch the show. The one who really needed to contribute was Truth Listener. "My little listener, you have to work harder. Whether the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra can condense a domain depends on you." Jowun summoned Truth Listener and got it to remove the earring's restrictions as he prayed silently. Just as Truth Listener was summoned, the three-faced Buddha, which was originally like a dead statue, suddenly widened its 6 eyes and looked at Truth Listener, who was standing in front of Jowun, giving him a fright. Jowun originally imagined that the three-faced Buddha would only react if he switched to the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra. This sudden turn of events gave Jowun a fright. The three-faced Buddha had 3 faces. One was expressionless, one was extremely sad, and one had a smile. 3 different faces and 6 Buddha eyes that emitted golden light stared at Truth Listener. The 6 golden beams were like 6 extremely bright searchlights that focused on Truth Listener. The earrings on Truth Listener's ears were being unsealed, so only 3 had shattered. When the Buddha eye's golden light shone, the remaining 3 earrings shattered together. Instantly, Truth Listener was freed of all its restrictions. its body rapidly transformed into an ape form before returning to human form. Zhou secretly urged Truth Listener to take action quickly, but Truth Listener stood there motionless. Zhou saw that its expression was ferocious, as though it wanted to shatter the three-faced Buddha with one palm strike, but its body didn't react at all. It's over. Truth Listener is completely restrained by the three-faced Buddha. I should have realized that Truth Listener came from here. The chances of it being able to defeat the three-faced Buddha are slim. Zhou was alarmed. He knew that it was impossible to rely on Truth Listener to kill the three-faced Buddha. Just as Zhou was about to give up and unsummon Truth Listener, he suddenly saw the three-faced Buddha speak. End of chapter. Chapter 1691. Bodhisattva who walks the world, your restraining companion beast, has reached the heaven realm stage. You will receive a reward. With the conversation bar on the phone screen, something flew out from the three-faced Buddha's head and floated in front of Zhou. It was a crystalline, fist-sized, irregular crystal. The crystal emitted a strange dark golden glow. It looked like a Buddhistic glow, but it was somewhat different. Great Samsara Disc. Zhou was alarmed when he saw the introduction of the crystal. Great Samsara Disc. An item that possesses destructive energy. It can be used to advance to the apocalyptic stage. There are a total of 3, and this is one of them. Zhou was truly alarmed. He had never seen what the apocalyptic stage looked like. It was unimaginable that this item could allow someone to advance to the apocalyptic stage. Can this item directly advance my small perfection of Wisdom Sutra to the apocalyptic stage? Wouldn't I be invincible then? Ignoring the fact that I can survive on Earth, even attacking the dimension wouldn't be a dream. Just as Zhou was fantasizing, the three-faced Buddha spoke again. The other 2 great samsara discs will be obtained by the other 2 bodhisattvas after their restraining companion beasts advance to the heaven realm stage. Only by gathering all 3 great samsara discs together and using the power of the 3 great samsara discs will one be able to advance to the apocalyptic stage. Holy sh*t, so this thing is a defective product. Zhou was depressed. Although Zhou didn't know who the other 2 people who had obtained small Buddha temple's companion beasts were, he didn't know how long it would take for their companion beasts to advance to the heaven realm stage. He had to pray that they didn't die prematurely. Otherwise, there would be no hope for the 3 great samsara discs. Zhou was still thinking about the chances of obtaining the 3 great samsara discs when he saw the three-faced Buddha continue speaking. The 3 restraining companion beasts are originally one. Only by fusing them can they advance to the apocalyptic stage. As the voice gradually weakened, the golden light in the three-faced Buddha's eyes gradually converged. Finally, it closed its eyes and returned to its lifeless state. What do you mean by being one? It's basically making the 3 bodhisattvas and restraining companion beasts fight and devour each other. In the end, only one can reap all the benefits, Zhou thought. Looking at the motionless three-faced Buddha, Zhou considered a very important question. Although the three-faced Buddha didn't say it clearly, it was estimated that one had to be at the heaven realm to be able to use the power of the 3 great reincarnation discs to advance to the apocalypse realm. The problem was that his great samsara disc was in-game. It was impossible for him to take it out in-game. As for the other 2 bodhisattvas, even if they could obtain the great samsara disc, it would be in reality. It would be difficult for him to bring the other 2 great samsara discs into the game even if he snatched them back. In other words, it was impossible for Zhou to gather all 3 great samsara discs. Is this considered a bug in the game? Zhou felt somewhat helpless as he looked at the great reincarnation wheel in-game. Although it was impossible for the small Buddha temple to respawn, leaving the great reincarnation disc here was not a problem. However, just leaving it there was no use. It would only be useful if all 3 discs were present. I wonder if this thing can be used now? Zhou attempted to use the great samsara disc in-game. He was only giving it a casual try, thinking that he was only at the terror grade and that it was missing. It was impossible for him to really use it. However, to his surprise, the great samsara disk immediately flashed with a dark golden light as it rushed into the blood-colored avatar's body. Then, the blood-colored avatar's entire body was dyed a dark golden color. It was like a dark golden figure of light as the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra circulated crazily. Holy sh*t, that works too! Zhou felt the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra circulate crazily as the great Brahma in his terror form automatically appeared. Its entire body emitted a dark golden glow like a destructive fiend celestial. Zhou shared the same feeling as the blood-colored avatar. Now, Zhou felt that the blood-colored avatar was experiencing an indescribable sense of comfort. That's right. It was indeed comfortable. If it were any other primordial energy art that suddenly obtained such immense energy, even if one could barely absorb it, it would definitely be extremely painful. Their bodies were about to explode, so how could they feel comfortable? However, the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra was completely different. Now, Zhou felt comfortable all over as though he had eaten a ginseng fruit. All his pores were filled with joy as though he was floating in the clouds. Ever since he started cultivating, Zhou only had one thought about cultivation. It was bitter. However, today, Zhou's mindset underwent a drastic change. It turned out that cultivation could be so comfortable. Amidst this comfortable feeling, Zhou even heard decadent music. In his mind, he even had the illusion of a beautiful Buddhist maiden circling around him. Could it be that small Buddha temple cultivates the joy Zen? Zhou wasn't just feeling comfortable anymore. He felt like he was about to enjoy himself. Zhou's willpower was firm, so he didn't lose himself in it. However, the feeling was extremely pleasant. Furthermore, Zhou could tell that this wasn't the skyfiend questioning heart, nor was it a test of his willpower. Brahma looked very similar to the three-faced Buddha, but he had 4 faces and 8 arms. The 2 faces on the front and left and right respectively represented the lack of desires, pity, and kindness towards people. Only the face on the back had never been seen from beginning to end. Even Zhou didn't know what the face looked like. He could only sense that the eyes on the face were secretly spying on all life. As the great samsara wheel's power constantly surged in, the dark golden glow on Brahma's body intensified. His head also slowly turned. It was turning instead of turning his head. The face on the back was slowly turning forward, and the face in front was slowly turning back. The face on the front was emotionless, representing the lack of desires. Therefore, he didn't have the ability to take the initiative to attack. This was also why Zhou didn't often use Brahma. It was just too passive. When the face on the back gradually turned, Zhou could already see his side profile. It was an extremely beautiful face. It was hard to tell if it was male or female, but he found it extremely beautiful. Coupled with the faint smile, it made one unable to shift their eyes away from it. They wished they could look at this face for the rest of their lives. However, on that face, there was a pair of evil eyes. Those eyes were also extremely beautiful. However, if one were to look at them for too long, they would feel a chill in their hearts. The longer one looked at them, the more terrified one would feel. If one kept staring at those eyes, they would eventually go crazy from fear. With such a face paired with such a pair of eyes, it was truly hard to fathom. When the face turned to the front, Zhou's comfortable feeling reached an extreme. Then, he instantly plummeted from the clouds into the valley. The emptiness of having lost everything instantly occupied Zhou's heart. And at that moment, the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra's domain condensed and advanced to the calamity grade. Chapter 1692. The small perfection of Wisdom's calamity domain was somewhat similar to the first order of chaos. They were both changes based on the terror transformation. When the face behind Brahma turned around, his entire aura changed drastically. Even his strength changed with the change, reaching the calamity grade. It was completely different from the face that had no desires in front of him. When this terrifying face appeared in front of him, Brahma no longer had his previous peace. Even his strength became sharp. Zhouwen could sense that this power had an extreme destructive nature. However, before he could savor it carefully, Brahma underwent a new change. Zhouwen was pleasantly surprised. Brahma was actually charging straight for the Hellgrade. It wasn't like other essence energy arts that stayed at the mortal stage after advancing to the calamity grade. A treasure that has advanced to the apocalypse stage is indeed different. Even if it's just an incomplete part, the energy it produces isn't something an ordinary domain core can compare with. I wonder if Brahma has a chance of advancing to the heaven realm. Zhouwen had been paying attention to the changes in Brahma. The insights brought about by the advancement could be said to be a very rare experience. It was probably impossible for it to happen a second time. As the energy increased, the face behind Brahma vanished. The two faces on the left and right gradually turned blurry. The original 8 arms also vanished one after another. When the other 3 faces completely vanished, leaving only the beautiful face behind, 6 of the 8 arms vanished, making Brahma look even closer to a human. His beautiful face seemed to have undergone some sort of change as well, becoming even more enigmatic. He seemed to be smiling yet not smiling, angry yet not angry, annoyed yet not angry, worried yet not worried. It was impossible to tell what kind of emotions he was feeling. Only the chilling look in his eyes seemed to become even more terrifying. At this moment, the game also indicated that the calamity domain had advanced to the hell grade, but Brahma continued changing without stopping. Is he really going to rush to the heaven realm? Zhouwen was ecstatic. The heaven realm was probably the highest existence among humans. Even the human representatives who had obtained the resources of the dimensional races wouldn't be able to advance to the heaven realm in such a short period of time. Pieces of dark gold substance appeared on Brahma's body. Those dark gold substances were clearly the great reincarnation discs, dark gold crystals. The dark gold crystals linked together, forming something like armor that wrapped around Brahma's body. The armor gradually took shape, and even Brahma's face was wrapped in dark gold armor. The edges of the black hole-like wheel of light behind him gradually turned dark gold and crystallized, forming a wheel with a black hole on the inside and a dark gold crystal on the outside. Brahma sat cross-legged and formed seals with his hands. The wheel behind him spun ceaselessly. He was like a god that came from the void, making him even more unfathomable. The great Nirvana domain has advanced to the heaven realm. With the in-game notification, Brahma finally stopped changing. This was enough to surprise Zhouwen. He was originally vexed about using the great samsara wheel, but now, he felt extremely happy. It was hard to say if he would be able to obtain the other 2 great reincarnation plates in the future, but now that he had leveled up to heaven realm, it was a huge benefit. As for the fact that without the great samsara wheel, the other 2 chosen disciples would lose the possibility of advancing to the apocalypse, but that had nothing to do with Zhouwen. They could only blame themselves for being unlucky. Zhouwen was interested to know who the 2 unlucky bastards were. He wanted to know what their expressions would be when they learned that one of the great samsara wheels was gone. Looking at the great nirvana that had advanced to the heaven realm, Zhouwen wanted to test his strength on the 3-faced Buddha to see how powerful it was. However, Zhouwen quickly dismissed this thought. He originally imagined that the 3-faced Buddha might be at the heaven realm, but since he could produce a treasure like the great samsara wheel that could advance to the apocalypse, Zhouwen didn't believe that he wasn't at the apocalypse stage. I should head out and find other dimensional creatures to test it out. Zhouwen glanced at the 3-faced Buddha that resembled a statue and left the small Buddha temple dungeon. While Zhouwen was happily gaming at home, the outside world wasn't idle either. Representatives of various races constantly appeared in the world, displaying their prowess in the Rubik's Cube. Many of them were famous geniuses from the past, but there were also some unknown figures who appeared. Emohi's Rubik's Cube ranking had already dropped to third place, and first place hadn't changed for a long time. The Sun race's representative in the human world, Kalaman, had set a record of clearing all 6 Big Dipper palaces. To this day, no one could surpass him. There were already rumors that Kalaman was a member of the Cape family, but the Cape family didn't admit or deny it. Their attitude was extremely ambiguous. Outside the dimensional zone where the family clan of gods was, a handsome man dressed in golden armor stood. He looked like a sun god. Kalaman, why aren't you staying at the Cape residence? Why are you here? The guards of the family clan of gods guarding the dimensional zone couldn't help but feel nervous when they saw the handsome man. Kalaman's astonishing performance in the Big Dipper Palace had long shocked the entire world. Some people even called him the strongest human expert. I want to see Emohi, Kalaman said calmly. His voice was gentle, but it had an irresistible majesty. When the guard heard that, he subconsciously turned around to look for Emohi. Kalaman, can't you wait to decide the victor with me? Mo walked out of the dimensional zone and said to Kalaman. Emohi's injuries had already healed. It was impossible to tell that he had been severely injured not long ago. Kalaman shook his head and said, Although you are very strong, I've never treated you as an opponent. I'm here to ask you an answer. What answer? Emohi didn't mind the arrogance in Kalaman's tone. Do you know how to ascend the Icy Divine Palace? Kalaman didn't stand on ceremony and asked directly. So what if I know? So what if I don't? Emohi asked. I'll make a bet with you. If I win, tell me how to ascend the Icy Divine Palace. Kalaman still looked high and mighty. How do you want to bet? Emohi knew that since Kalaman had come knocking on his door, he definitely had a source. Even if he denied it, he wouldn't let the matter rest so easily. Whoever clears the Big Dipper Palace first wins, Kalaman said. Are you confident of clearing the Alcade Star Palace? Emohi frowned slightly. The Alcade Star Palace was also known as the Army Destroyer Star Palace. The long steps in front of the Star Palace's door could eliminate all essence energy. No matter how strong a cultivator was, they would become trash without essence energy once they entered the Star Palace. Therefore, no one had been able to break through it. It can be broken at any time, Kalaman said indifferently. End of this chapter. Chapter 1693. Professor Gu, what do you think of the recent rankings? Sui tried his best to focus on hosting the show. Although the Rubik's Cube rankings had been surging recently, and the rankings were constantly changing, the program's effects and ratings were very good, Sui just couldn't lift his spirit. Professor Gu continued, currently, those who can enter the top 10 of the Rubik's Cube rankings are all strong individuals who can break through the 5th Star Palace. Only Kalaman, the representative of the Sun Clan, has broken through the 6th Star Palace. He is considered to be outshining others. However, according to my research, among the top 10, there should be 3 to 4 people who have a high chance of breaking through the 6th Star Palace. I wonder who it is? Sui asked. Let me give you an example first. For example, Move, the representative of the Fallen. His strength should not be inferior to Kalaman's. It is only a matter of time before he breaks through the 6th Star Palace. The others have similar strength, but even if they break through the 6th Star Palace, they may not be able to surpass Kalaman in ranking, so they have not made a move yet, Professor Gu analyzed. As the host, Suyi's reaction was very fast. He followed Professor Gu's words and asked, Then, Professor Gu, among these people, who do you think has the highest chance of breaking through the 7th Star Palace? That is hard to say. According to the results of Kalaman's previous attempt, the stone steps in front of the Alcade Star Palace can eliminate primordial chi. Kalaman gave up before reaching the end of the stone step. It can be roughly estimated that after reaching the end, primordial chi may be completely eliminated. With such a characteristic, even the strongest powerhouse will be useless in front of the Star Palace. Unless there is a way to preserve primordial chi, no one has any hope of breaking through the 7th Star Palace. Professor Gu paused and then said, "As for who has such an ability, it is temporarily impossible to determine. However, one thing is for sure. Kalaman's power cannot be prevented from eliminating primordial chi. So, although his ranking is relatively high, his chances of breaking through the 7th Star Palace are the smallest." The comments were all discussing who would be the first to break through the 7th Star Palace. There were people talking about everyone, but the people they were talking about were basically the few people who were ranked at the top. As the discussion heated up, the screen of the Rubik's Cube suddenly lit up. A figure appeared on the screen. It was Kalaman. Kalaman? Su-yi was stunned when he saw Kalaman. Professor Gu's expression also became strange. Kalaman is already ranked first. There's no need for him to challenge the Big Dipper Palace again, unless he wants to challenge the 7th Star Palace. Su-yi's eyes lit up. Professor Gu is mighty. No wonder his mouth has been blessed. Sect leader Gu will rule the pugilistic world for thousands of years. I'm willing to call Sect Master Gu the strongest in the universe. The bullet screen was filled with praises for Sect leader Gu. Professor Gu had just said that Kalaman was the person with the least chance of breaking through to the 7th Astral Palace. Now, Kalaman had come to challenge him, and it was obvious that he was aiming for the 7th Astral Palace. Everyone felt that Professor Gu was truly boundless. Clad in golden armor, Kalaman arrived before the 1st Astral Palace. His body radiated with the Sun God's divine light as if he was the son of the Sun God. With every step he took, the golden Sun God light on his body shone brightly, making his handsome face look even more sacred. When Starlord Covetous Wolf saw Kalaman walk in, he blasted out a blast of light. Commandlo similarly punched out, and the sun-like golden light collided with Starlord Covetous Wolf's blast of light. The terrifying glare made it impossible for everyone to see what was happening on the screen. Only an extremely small number of powerhouses were able to see what was happening in front of the magic cube. They knew that in that instant, Kalaman and Starlord Covetous Wolf had already punched out countless times. Their speed had already reached the speed of light, and the average person would not be able to see their movements. As for the broadcast, it was completely filled with glare. Soon, when the glare disappeared, Starlord Covetous Wolf had already been killed by Kalaman. Many crystals dropped to the ground. He's too powerful. He killed Starlord Covetous Wolf with a single punch. Ordinary people only saw Kalaman's punch and imagined that he had instantly killed Starlord Covetous Wolf. No matter how many times I watch it, it's still so pleasing to the eye. Kalaman is just too perfect. He doesn't look human at all. He's like Apollo. People marveled at Kalaman's strength as they were envious. Many people wondered when they would be lucky enough to be chosen by a dimensional race and become a powerful existence like Kalaman. Kalaman struck one star palace after another. The star lords that looked extremely powerful in the eyes of ordinary people were easily killed by Kalaman in a matter of seconds. However, ordinary people couldn't see that Kalaman had actually used many techniques. The main reason why he could kill the Star Lords so quickly was because he had already understood the abilities of the Star Lords and used targeted tactics. Even so, it was still rather shocking. Although I've already seen it once, I have to admit that Kalaman is too strong. He's very close to the former human sovereign, Sui said with a sigh. He never expected Su-yi's sigh to trigger a collective ridicule on the bullet screen. Although you are my goddess, human sovereign is no longer comparable to Kalaman, right? It's impossible for a pure human to advance to the Calamity Realm, right? Sis, human sovereign is an ancient legend from many years ago. The new generation replaces the old, and the new generation replaces the old. Human sovereign has long been slapped to death on the beach. Although I'm unwilling to admit it, I have to say that the strength of a spokesperson who has obtained the resources of a dimensional race increases too quickly. Unless human sovereign also becomes a spokesperson, there's no comparison. With human sovereign's temper, he probably won't lower his head to a dimensional race. It's unlikely that he will become a spokesperson. If even human sovereign becomes a spokesperson, that would be too lamentable. What's there to be lamentable about? What era are we in now? Everything depends on strength. It's lamentable without strength. As people discussed, Kalaman had already broken through the 6-star palace and arrived in front of the long staircase to the 7th-star palace. Everyone immediately fell silent as they held their breaths as they looked at the screen. In the previous timeline, Kalaman had given up halfway. Thankfully, he still had a chance to give up before entering the Star Palace. If he entered the Star Palace, he wouldn't even have the chance to give up. Under everyone's attention, Kalaman stepped onto the stairs and walked towards the Star Palace's entrance. Everyone counted Kalaman's steps in their hearts. When he arrived at the place he had previously given up, he didn't give up like before. Instead, he continued walking. Kalaman has walked up. When Kalaman reached the end of the stone steps, even Sui couldn't help but raise his voice. Chapter 1694. Professor Gu felt a little embarrassed. Kalaman walked up the stone steps, and the sun-like golden divine light on his body was still as resplendent as before. Anyone could see that Kalaman had found a way to restrain the elimination of Yuan Qi on the stone steps and had not lost his Yuan Qi. Under the attention of everyone, Kalaman pushed open the door of the Alcade Star Palace. It was like an unknown new world, attracting everyone's attention. Inside the Alcade Star Palace, starlight flashed, and Vanquisher stood in it like a god. Kalaman did not have the slightest fear. The golden divine light on his body rose like flames, and he stepped on the air toward Vanquisher. His steps were steady, not as fast as when he was in the other star palaces. After all, Vanquisher was an unknown Star Lord, and he had only obtained some information from the Sun Holy Temple. Furthermore, it was just speculation, and it might not be completely accurate. Vanquisher's eyes suddenly opened, and his originally calm aura suddenly turned murderous. His body moved like a phantom as he charged toward Kalaman. Kalaman did not back down and actually met him head-on. Starlight shot out and the sun was dazzling. The screen was dazzling, and it was impossible to see what was happening. Only a few calamity-grade powerhouses could see some clues in front of the Rubik's Cube. The entire world seemed to be dead silent. Everyone looked at the screen that was flashing. Although they did not know what was happening, the sound of energy colliding inside made their hearts rise and fall. Can Kalyaman get through the 7th Constellation Palace? Sui muttered to himself. A battle of this level is too high level. Not to mention that I can't see anything on the live broadcast. Even calamity-grade powerhouses can only see some clues through the Rubik's Cube. We can only wait for the slow-motion replay to analyze it. However, by then, the outcome will already be decided, and there won't be much point in analyzing it. Professor Gu smiled bitterly. Professor Gu, we believe in you. Kalaman will win. Sect Leader Gu, you're wrong. You can't doubt your own poisonous milk level. You have to have confidence in yourself. Don't say any more. You're our light. We don't need to see the result to know that Kalaman will win. Many people were ridiculing Professor Gu on the bullet screen, which made him a little depressed. However, after such a long time, he had almost gotten used to it. The name of the poisonous milk sect leader had long been known to the entire world. Mo stood in front of the Rubik's Cube with a strange expression. Emohi, what happened? What are Kalaman's chances of winning? An elder from the family of gods asked Mo. Even the powerhouses of the clan of gods couldn't understand much of it. Kalaman has already figured out Star Lord Vanquisher's background. He's probably about to break into the 7th constellation palace. Mauve paused before saying, "This guy is indeed terrifyingly strong. Not only because he obtained the resources of the Sun God Temple, but also because he possesses extremely high battle intelligence and talent." It broke just like that? Looks like among the younger generation, this person poses the greatest threat to our family clan of gods, the old man muttered. Mauve didn't retort, but another figure appeared in his mind. Although Kaloman was indeed very powerful, he still felt that that person was even more terrifying. Time ticked by, and when everyone could finally see the scene on the screen clearly, only Kaloman, who looked like the son of the sun god, was left standing in the Star Palace. It took him less than 6 minutes to break through the 7th Star Palace. He's really strong. Kaloman is truly invincible. He's undoubtedly the strongest human expert at this stage. Damn it, the Cape family is really lucky. They clearly have the backing of the Divine Sovereign Temple, but they actually have a spokesperson for the Sun God Temple. This is too ridiculous. Amidst everyone's exclamations, Kaloman walked to the teleportation array and was teleported out of the Big Dipper Palace. The ranking on the Rubik's Cube didn't change. Kaloman was still first. Indeed, the Alcade Palace is the last Star Palace. Kaloman is the first human to clear the Big Dipper Palace. He will be forever recorded in history. Even if someone else clears the 7th Constellation Palace in the future, they won't be able to shake his position. After all, the first one is the most difficult, Professor Gu sighed. Although Su-Yi was very excited, she felt a little disappointed. She hoped that the person in her heart would be the first to clear the Big Dipper Palace. Are pure humans really going to be eliminated by the times? Su-Yi sighed inwardly. Zhouwen didn't pay any attention to this matter. At that moment, he was immersed in the terrifying abilities of Brahma. The heavenly realm's Brahma was completely different from when he was at the Terragrade. If the Brahma formed from the Terragrade was a god that pitted the world, then Brahma was a god that wanted to destroy and purify the world when the world was already dead. They were both gods, but the difference between the two was like night and day. Now, not only did Brahma possess destructive power, but he could also fuse with Zhouwen's body, allowing him to use his strength. In-game, after the blood-colored avatar fused with Brahma, its appearance was that of Brahma's dark gold armor. It gave off a mysterious and extremely powerful feeling. In particular, the black hole-like wheel of light behind him made the dark gold armor appear illusory, as though it didn't belong to the mortal world. Just as he was admiring the power of Brahma after the fusion, his phone suddenly rang. Zhouwen took out his phone and took a look. It was Hui Haifeng, who he hadn't contacted in a long time. "Junior brother, what have you been busy with recently? Why didn't you contact me more? Our relationship as fellow disciples can't be so weak," Hui Haifeng said with a grin. Hui Haifeng said with a grin. It was hard to tell that he was now the supreme leader of the Federation. "Speak." Zhouwen was somewhat speechless. Hui Haifeng had thrown Hui Xiao to him and ignored him. Now, he was doing this again. "What do you think of Karaman?" Hui Haifeng's tone turned solemn. "What Karaman?" Zhouwen was slightly taken aback. "Are you serious? Don't you know that Karaman cleared the Big Dipper Palace?" Hui Haifeng asked doubtfully. "Someone cleared the Big Dipper Palace so quickly? I really don't know about this. I didn't pay much attention to it. Who is Karaman?" Zhouwen said. "To think that you are a city lord. You can be considered an overlord now. Yet, you don't even know about such a huge matter. How are you a city lord?" Hui Haifeng was somewhat speechless. After a pause, he said, "Karaman is a member of the Cape family. He's now the spokesperson of the Sun Holy Temple. He just cleared the Big Dipper Palace. Now the entire world is filled with news about him." "What has this got to do with me?" Zhouwen asked. "Of course it has something to do with you. Look at the rankings. The top 10 are all representatives of dimensional races. If this continues, I'm afraid everyone will think that there's nothing wrong with being ruled by dimensional zones. In the future stop. What are you trying to do? Get to the point. Zhou didn't have the patience to listen to his reasoning. I say, junior brother, as the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. In order to let the citizens of the Federation regain their glory as humans, shouldn't you also show your face on the rankings? Let them know that even if they aren't those fellows from the dimension, humans can still become top-notch experts. Hui Haifeng moved him with emotion and reason, giving a touching speech. Chapter 1695. Zhou originally had the intention of entering the Big Dipper Palace in reality. The two of them hit it off, so Zhou didn't decline Hui Haifeng's offer. The Big Dipper Palace in-game had already been refreshed. Zhou grinded it again, but just as he expected, the North Star's Lord Polaris didn't respawn. He was basically certain that the hidden dungeons in-game could only be grinded once. If he wanted to obtain the treasures in the hidden dungeons, he had to think of a way in reality. If Zhou had some hesitation previously, afraid that he wouldn't be able to last until Truth Listener defeated Purple Star Lord, Brahma's advancement to the heavenly realm had completely dispelled such worries. Now, Zhou was considering what identity he should use to enter the Big Dipper Palace. With Zhou's identity, he would definitely become the focus of various factions in the future. The various races of the dimension would probably treat Guide Ancient City and him as a thorn in their side. They would think of all means to get rid of him. Therefore, after some hesitation, Zhou decided to challenge the Big Dipper Palace as human sovereign. Furthermore, this identity had high prestige among humans, so it was very suitable. Tian, please bless me. Let me get another Emperor Star. Zhou kept thinking about the Emperor Star. It could add a life providence for no reason, making it suitable for any companion beast. Hui Haifeng headed straight for the Rubik's Cube. He wanted to strike while the iron was hot. Before the Kalaman incident caused any more influence, he wanted to destroy it. Professor Gu, Kalaman has become the first person to clear the Big Dipper Palace, and the 2nd to 10th place have not even been able to clear the 6th Constellation Palace. I'm afraid there's a high chance that the reward for clearing the Big Dipper Palace will go to Kalaman. Su-Yi chatted with Professor Gu on the show. Professor Gu nodded slightly and said, although everything is still unknown before the countdown of the Rubik's Cube ends, based on the current situation, it will be difficult for anyone to surpass Kalaman in a short period of time. Even if someone can also clear the Big Dipper Palace, it won't be easy to surpass Kalaman in the rankings. As Professor Gu was speaking, he suddenly noticed that the Rubik's Cube screen lit up again. Someone wants to challenge the Big Dipper Palace again? Who could it be? He or someone else? Everyone who was watching the show was slightly stunned, and then they became excited again. Entering the Big Dipper Palace at this time is clearly for Kalaman. He's trying to pick a fight. However, to be able to stir up trouble like this, it must be someone with extraordinary strength. At the very least, it must have the strength to break through the Big Dipper Palace. Who could it be? While everyone was talking, a white shadow appeared on the Rubik's Cube screen. The pure white silhouette was like a god wrapped in holy light. Although it was impossible to see what the person in the silhouette looked like, many people immediately recognized who it was. Holy shit! The human sovereign is out. F*CKU. Is the human emperor here? What was he trying to do? Barging into the Big Dipper Palace? Fortunately, I didn't give up. You're finally here. Human sovereign, you're finally here. Why are you so excited? For the human sovereign to come here, it means that he's definitely a calamity-grade existence. If he doesn't become a spokesperson and doesn't have the help of the dimensional resources, do you think a pure human can advance to the calamity grade so quickly? Sigh, that makes sense. I'm afraid the current human sovereign is no longer the human sovereign of the past. There was a lot of discussion, and the bullet screen was so densely packed that it was impossible to see what was written. It was clear that the human sovereign had not been completely forgotten. He had just been silent for too long. Did the human sovereign choose to enter the Big Dipper Palace at this time to do something? What do you think, Professor Gu? When Sui saw the human sovereign enter the Big Dipper Palace, his entire being seemed to have changed, and he appeared very energetic. You mean to say that the human sovereign chose to enter the Big Dipper Palace the moment Kalaman broke through the Big Dipper Palace to prove that ordinary humans aren't inferior to the spokesperson, right? Professor Gu asked. Sui nodded excitedly. I don't think it's as simple as a coincidence. The human sovereign must have come prepared by choosing this time to enter the Big Dipper Palace. Furthermore, he has already seen the battle between Kalaman and the Army Breaker and understands the Army Breaker's abilities. It shouldn't be a big problem for him to break through the Big Dipper Palace. Professor Gu avoided discussing if the human sovereign was a pure human. He only said that the human sovereign would definitely be able to break through the Big Dipper Palace. It's over. With Sect Master Gu's healing, the human sovereign will be in danger. No, Sect Master. You are trying to kill the human sovereign. The bullet screen was filled with wails. Who could withstand the poison milk Sect Master's healing? And Sheng stood behind Tianzhua and looked at the scene on the Rubik's Cube. Overseer, young Master One will definitely be able to inspire many humans once he reaches the top of the rankings. This will be extremely beneficial to the development of humans in the future. Tianzhua said coldly, ignoring the fact that he can clear the Big Dipper Palace, even if he can, according to the rules of the Rubik's Cube ranking. The first person to clear the Big Dipper Palace will receive an invisible point bonus. It will be very difficult for him to be ranked above Kalaman. If he is calm enough and studies the Army Breaker's abilities, he might have a chance to defeat him in the most perfect way. He's already so old, but he's still so rash. Perhaps young Master One is already confident, and Xing mumbled. What confidence? I think he's just being hot-headed. Tianzhua snorted, but his eyes kept staring at the screen. There seemed to be some anticipation in his eyes. Human Sovereign actually appeared at this moment. Things have become interesting. In front of the Rubik's Cube in the Zhang family compound, Zhang Chuanxiu and Xia Luchuan were also watching. Is Human Sovereign still a pure human? Xia Luchuan stared at the screen with interest, but unfortunately, he couldn't even see what the person inside looked like. We'll know soon, Zhang Chuanxiu said indifferently. The various factions were paying attention to Human Sovereign. Instead of saying that they wanted to know if Human Sovereign could clear the Big Dipper Palace, it was more accurate to say that they wanted to know if Human Sovereign had become a spokesperson. Zhouwen appeared in his terror form. In fact, he had already fused with Brahma, but he didn't plan on using Brahma to fight. Under everyone's expectant gazes, Zhouwen pushed open the door to the Star Palace and summoned Truth Listener. Everyone was taken aback. They never expected Human Sovereign to summon a companion beast to fight. Although a small number of humans already had calamity-grade companion beasts, it was almost impossible to clear the level with just one companion beast in a continuous battle like the Seven Stars Palace. Furthermore, fighting on the Rubik's Cube allowed everyone to watch the battle process. Using too many companion beasts was equivalent to showing one's trump card to one's enemy. Therefore, unless necessary, very few people used companion beasts. Could it be that Human Sovereign's strength hasn't reached the level of clearing the Seven Stars Palace? He needs to use the power of multiple companion beasts to clear the Seven Stars Palace. In that case, it should be very difficult for him to surpass Kalaman in the rankings, right? This thought flashed through many people's minds. Chapter 1696. A Humanoid Companion Beast? It looks so cool. Truth Listener, which Zhouwen had summoned, had already removed the restrictions on its 6 earrings. It appeared in the Star Palace in human form. Its handsome and wild appearance immediately attracted the attention of many people. Even in this era where natural disasters occurred, humanoid companion beasts were still very rare existences. Before anyone could carefully admire Truth Listener's appearance, Truth Listener had already appeared in front of Starlord Greed in an instant. Light bloomed on Starlord Covetous Wolf's fist, but before he could blast out the blast of light, Truth Listener slapped him to the ground along with the blast of light. It exploded as all sorts of essence energy crystals fell to the ground. Most people couldn't see Colomon's battle process, but everyone could see Truth Listener's slap that blasted Starlord Covetous Wolf apart. This was because the action was too simple, direct, and lacking in technique. Holy sh*t, what the hell is this? This companion beast is way too cool. If he were a real human, I would definitely marry him. He killed Starlord Greed with a single slap. This companion beast is comparable to Colomon. It's no wonder Human Emperor dares to barge into the Big Dipper Palace. Holy sh*t, is this Starlord Greed fake? He's a calamity-grade creature after all. He was slapped to death just like that? The entire world instantly exploded. Sue-E said agitatedly, as expected of Human Emperor. Just a companion beast is already so powerful. I wonder how powerful he is. I'm really looking forward to seeing him personally take action. Professor Gu continued, your anticipation might not last long. This companion beast is indeed extremely powerful, but it's obvious that he's a strength-type melee companion beast. It shouldn't be difficult for him to deal with Starlord Greed and Starlord Colossal Gate. However, when it comes to Starlord Lusen in the Third Star Palace, this companion beast will be restrained. Human Emperor will need to take action himself or summon a new companion beast. As people discussed, Zhouwen had already brought Truth Listener to the Second Star Palace. Just as Professor Gu had predicted, Truth Listener effortlessly smacked Starlord Colossal Gate to death. Everyone could clearly see that Starlord Colossal Gate had no way of fighting back. Now, I want to know how Human Emperor will deal with Lord Lu Siyuan. Will he do it himself, or will he summon a new companion beast? Professor Gu said. After hearing Professor Gu's explanation, everyone began to look forward to it. They discussed whether Human Emperor would take action himself or summon a new companion beast. Some people looked forward to seeing Human Emperor's glory, while others hoped to see Human Emperor display more powerful companion beasts. However, after Human Emperor walked into Lutsuan Star Palace, he didn't summon any companion beasts. Professor Gu said, from the looks of it, Human Emperor plans on taking action himself. I wonder what kind of power or strategy he will use. However, as long as Human Emperor takes action, we can roughly tell if he has advanced to a calamity with a pure human body. Before Professor Gu could finish his analysis, Truth Listener went forward and slapped Lord Lu Siyuan. Explode, explode, explode. For a moment, the scene became a little strange. The professor's eyes widened and his mouth hung open for a long time. This doesn't make any sense, does it? Wasn't Star Lord Lu Siyuan able to reflect damage? Didn't it have powerful recovery abilities? Isn't it able to restrain strength-type companion beasts? Isn't he invincible? What the hell happened? Where am I? Who am I? Professor Gu asked with a head full of questions. Haha, I, Human Emperor, am awesome. There's no such thing as a strategy. There's no need for me to take action. A companion beast can be killed with a slap. This companion beast is invincible. It can even be smacked to death. It really doesn't make sense. Don't tell me Human Emperor is going to use a companion beast to kill 7 Star Lords. 666. Human Emperor is mighty. So he can be so powerful with just a companion beast. This is the world's strongest companion beast. I won't accept any rebuttals. Many humans had great expectations and good impressions of Human Emperor to begin with. Truth Listener's domineering performance instantly ignited their enthusiasm. Professor Gu, Human Emperor's companion beast, is so powerful. What type of companion beast do you think it is? Will Human Emperor use this companion beast to crack the Big Dipper Palace? If that's the case, does his ranking have a chance of surpassing Colomon's? Sui was very excited as he raised several questions. Professor Gu finally snapped to his senses and forced himself to calm down. From the looks of it, this companion beast's level should be very high. It ignores the rules of strength attribute. If nothing unexpected happens, it should be able to penetrate the Big Dipper Palace with one companion beast. Professor Gu, don't. I'm afraid Human Emperor won't be able to withstand your poisonous milk. What's there to be afraid of? If this companion beast isn't enough, Human Emperor definitely has other powerful companion beasts. It'll be a feast for the eyes to see a few more. Everyone was having a good time watching. In the past, they couldn't see the battles between the other powerful Star Lords clearly. They could only watch the slow-motion analysis after the battle. This was the first time they could see it so clearly during a live broadcast. Zhou led Truth Listener to strike the Star Palaces one by one. All of them exploded with a single slap. None of the Star Lords could withstand the seemingly simple slap, nor did they have a chance to counterattack. When the various factions saw how powerful Truth Listener was, to the point where it didn't even need to use any targeted strength or strategy to kill the Star Lords, their expressions turned extremely odd. They originally wanted to observe Human Emperor's strength from this battle, but now they didn't even know what abilities his companion beasts had, much less his strength. Such a slap was like slapping eggs. They couldn't see anything. Young Master Wen's companion beast should be the strongest in the world, and Xing said with a sigh. Humph, if you rely on external forces and don't pay attention to your own cultivation, you will suffer sooner or later. Although Tianzhua said that, he couldn't help but size up Truth Listener. The first 6 Star Lords hadn't been able to cause any trouble for Truth Listener. Now, everyone was wondering if the long stage in front of the Alcade Star Palace that could eliminate essence energy could restrain Human Emperor and his companion beast. The first 6 Star Palaces weren't able to put any pressure on Human Emperor. Will the final Alcade Star Palace give him some pressure? Sui was extremely confident in Human Emperor. He firmly believed that Human Emperor would definitely be able to break through the 7th Star Palace. He only wanted to know if the long stage could cause Human Emperor some trouble. In theory, the long stage can eliminate essence energy. Even if that companion beast's strength is invincible, it's still an essence energy creature after all. It will definitely be restrained at the long stage. If Human Emperor doesn't have a way to restrain the long stage, I'm afraid this stage won't be easy. However, since Human Emperor dares to come, he must be prepared. I believe he has the ability to restrain advanced beasts. Then, all he needs to do is unsummon the companion beast and summon it after he completes the advanced stage and enters the Star Palace. That will solve all the problems. Professor Gu analyzed the strategy that Zhou might use. I think I saw a friend tip the Alliance leader, but I didn't see a notification. What's going on? End of this chapter. Chapter 1697. Zhou naturally didn't put away Truth Listener when he arrived at the long staircase. Wouldn't it be more troublesome to summon it again? Furthermore, Truth Listener wasn't afraid of these strange taboos at all. It was even more useful than his teacher's domain. He didn't need to do anything, and the long-grade essence energy elimination ability was useless against him. When everyone saw Human Emperor walk up the stairs with Truth Listener without any intention of retracting it, they immediately became excited. Sect Master Gu's mouth has indeed been blessed. From the looks of it, Human Emperor's companion beasts aren't afraid of the ability to eliminate essence energy. It's not only the companion beasts that aren't afraid. Human Emperor definitely isn't afraid either. That's a little impressive. As expected, The human emperor led Truth Listener to the end of the long staircase and pushed open the door to the Alcade Star Palace. Human Emperor's companion beast is just too cool. It's practically domineering. Any kind of power is useless against it. What kind of companion beast is this? I've never heard of such a companion beast, Sui said excitedly. Professor Gu was a little embarrassed and did not speak anymore. He did not know what he had seen today. No matter how he analyzed it, it was always wrong. Professor Gu thought to himself, it's better for me to speak less. This human emperor really doesn't play his cards according to common sense. Zhou pushed open the Star Palace's door and walked in with Truth Listener. Then, he repeated the scene of blowing it up with one punch. This was even when Zhou had gotten Truth Listener to hold back. Otherwise, even the Star Palace would have been crippled. What the hell? That works? Koloman fought for a few minutes, but he was killed with a single punch? This companion beast is really amazing. What strategy? What plan? There's no need for that at all. Just blow them up with a single punch. It's still human emperor. Even cult leader Gu can't heal him. He's a steady boss. Qixing Palace cleared the game just like that. No matter how I look at it, this companion beast is stronger than Karaman. Although he used a companion beast to clear the level, he's just too powerful. He should have a chance of getting first place on the rankings, right? Excuse me, where can such a companion beast be obtained? Stop dreaming. Ignoring the fact that such a companion beast is definitely unique, even if there's a place to obtain it, you don't have the ability to obtain it. Everyone was dumbfounded. Truth Listener's domineering style made them feel like they hadn't had enough of it. Professor Gu, do you think Human Emperor has a chance to reach the top of the list? Sui asked Professor Gu. Professor Gu cleared his throat and said conservatively, in theory, using companion beasts to clear the level will give you a lower score than clearing the level yourself. The more companion beasts you use, the lower the score. However, Human Emperor only used one companion beast. Furthermore, it was a crushing defeat. His score shouldn't be low. He has a high chance of competing for first place. As he spoke, Professor Gu could no longer restrain himself. He continued, however, the human sovereign has already seen the abilities of all the stellar venerates. The difficulty of clearing the stage will definitely not be as high as Koloman's, who cleared the 7th Astral Palace on his first attempt. If the human sovereign was the first person to clear the 7th Astral Palace, he would definitely rank first. As for now, there is still some suspense. In other words, Professor Gu was implying that although Human Emperor's companion beast was very strong, he had taken advantage of Koloman. He hadn't cleared the unknown Star Palace by himself. That's not right. In any case, it's all a matter of one punch. Even if I haven't seen Koloman's clear, Human Emperor can still easily clear it. I bet that Human Emperor will definitely make it to the top. It's indeed a pity. If only Human Emperor had appeared earlier. Just as everyone was discussing if Human Emperor could reach the top of the rankings, they saw Human Emperor arrive in front of a mini-star in the Star Palace. Truth Listener reached out to push the mini-star, causing it to spin. What is he doing? It wasn't just the ordinary people. This time, even the people from the various factions were puzzled. They didn't know why Human Emperor wasn't leaving after clearing the stage. Instead, he was pushing the mini-star. What's Junior Brother doing? Hui Haifeng was already very satisfied with Zhou Wen's performance. Although he hadn't taken action himself, it was already very commendable for him to use a companion beast to suppress Koloman. Amidst everyone's puzzlement, the mini-star's entire body shimmered with blue light. It transformed into a blue beam of light that shone on the teleportation array, dyeing it icy blue. Holy sh*t, what's Human Emperor doing? What's going on? No way. Could there be something fishy about the Big Dipper Palace? Many people widened their eyes as they watched the magical changes in the Star Palace. When Zhou walked into the teleportation array with Truth Listener, the scene on the Rubik's Cube changed to the North Star and the Ice Palace. Heavens, there's actually a Star Palace? Holy sh*t, there's a hidden Star Palace. How did Human Emperor know? Instantly, there were bullet comments everywhere on the internet. A series of question marks flooded the screen. Professor Gu was dumbfounded. He had just said that Human Emperor hadn't cleared an unknown Star Palace by himself, but in the end, he came to a Star Palace that no one knew about. Now, Professor Gu wished he could slap himself twice. He regretted saying that last sentence. This Astral Lord looks so cool. What Astral Lord is this? Lad, you don't like to study, right? It's obvious that you're uncultured. The Big Dipper corresponds to the North Star, and the North Star has the name Purple Palace. I'm guessing that this Star Palace should be the Purple North Star Palace. His Majesty is indeed an extraordinary person who knows everything about astronomy and geography. He must have used the Purple North Star number to analyze the existence of the hidden Star Palace. I'm more and more impressed by him. This is the human sovereign. There's no need to personally enter the Star Palace. He can divine the hidden Star Palace with just a pinch of his fingers. That's how confident a cultured person is. Many people were about to treat Human Emperor as a myth, but they didn't know that Zhou didn't know anything about the Purple North Star number. Human Emperor actually knows the Purple North Star number? Zhang Chuanxiu wore a look of shock. The Purple North Star number was also known as the number 1 divine number in the world, or the study of emperors. The Zhang family also studied the Purple North Star number, but there weren't many people who were truly proficient in it. Human Emperor actually knew it, and it looked like he was very proficient in it. This surprised him. To be able to deduce the existence of the hidden Star Palace from the layout of the mini-stars in the Star Palace, it was impossible to find the star that activated the hidden dimensional zone from the countless mini-stars without knowing the Purple North Star number. What doesn't this fellow know? Xiao Youchuan's face was filled with envy and hatred. In the Wang family, Wang Lu wore a look of worry as she prayed silently. Please don't let anything happen to him. Compared to the curiosity others had about the hidden Star Palace, Wang Lu was more worried about Zhou safety. She had long known that Human Emperor was Zhou. The dangers of the hidden Star Palace are unknown. Young Master One is too careless. And Xing also wore a look of worry. And Tianzui didn't say a word, but his eyes were filled with worry. Chapter 1698. What a pity. From the looks of it, your spot at the top of the rankings will change hands. In the family clan of gods, he smiled at Kalaman. Since I know of the existence of the hidden Star Palace, first place will be mine sooner or later. Furthermore, it's hard to say if he can clear the hidden Star Palace. With just one companion beast, he might not be able to deal with all situations, Kalaman said indifferently. As the two of them spoke, Purple Star Lord opened his eyes in the Star Palace. Stars appeared in the sky, transforming into countless starlight that shot down. Instantly, the world lit up, and the entire Star Palace seemed to turn into a boundless universe. The entire Rubik's Cube was occupied by the magnificent starlight. Kalaman, who had been calm a moment ago, suddenly had a change in expression. Such an aura and strength was definitely not something the Star Lords of the 7 Star Palaces could compare with. Great Heavenly Cycle Stellar Array. Zhang Chuanxiu, who had always been calm, cried out involuntarily. Even low-level ordinary people could tell that this Star Lord was very different when they saw the power that resembled the primordial chaos of the universe. Under the aura of the great heavenly cycle stellar array, ordinary people felt as insignificant as ants. Despair spread in their hearts through the screen. Boom! A golden stream of light erupted amidst the starlight like a golden flash streaking across the galaxy. The battle had finally begun. It was like a galaxy had exploded as countless starlight bloomed. Not to mention ordinary people, Even calamity-grade spokespersons could not see what was happening inside. As Koloman watched, he felt his body turn cold. His underwear was drenched in cold sweat. "I can't resist it." This was the only word in Koloman's mind. If he were to fight Purple Star-Lord, he would probably be instantly killed. What the hell? Is human sovereign really that strong? Xiao Yuchuan's mouth gaped open for a long time. He couldn't see what the battle inside was like, but to be able to survive a battle of this level proved that human sovereign was extremely powerful. Xiao Luchuan knew very well that if he were to watch the battle inside, he would probably be gone. Is young master one already this strong? And Sheng's face was filled with joy. All he knows is to flaunt all day, as though he's afraid that others don't know his background. And Tianzuo's tone was cold, but the corners of his mouth curled up unconsciously, forming a beautiful arc. Only a few humans could understand a battle of this level, and those who could were secretly shocked. Has it already reached this level? In an uninhabited ancient city, an old man narrowed his eyes as he watched the battle on the Rubik's Cube. It was Jing Daoxian, whom he had not seen in a long time. After watching for a while, Jing Daoxian didn't continue watching. He turned around and left, muttering to himself, "From the looks of it, I have to be faster. Otherwise, I really won't be able to keep up with this era." Everyone who was watching the battle felt the same. A chill ran down their spines, and an uncontrollable fear filled their hearts. Those with weaker willpower were trembling all over. The collision of power, which was like the end of the world, made everyone feel insignificant and powerless. This is a real natural disaster. No one knew who posted such a bullet screen, and then all the programs on the internet began to post this sentence. "Professor Gu, what level of battle is this? Is this still a natural disaster?" Sui murmured as he watched, dazzled. "I can only say that such a battle has surpassed any known powerhouse at this stage. I have to apologize for what I said just now. To be able to participate in such a battle, even if the human emperor did not fight personally, it is enough to prove that his strength is already above all known humans." Professor Gu continued with a serious expression. "If he really is a pure human and has no contracted guardian, then the human emperor is fully deserving of being the emperor of humanity. Such strength may not be unparalleled in the future, but it is definitely unprecedented. Only now do I know why the human sovereign didn't personally fight the stellar sovereigns in front of us. It's because he felt that it was beneath him to make a move. It's just like how a high and mighty emperor wouldn't personally kill ordinary people. Those stellar sovereigns weren't worthy of him personally fighting. Now I only hope that the human emperor can come out alive. If such a person were to die in the Star Palace, it would be the greatest loss of humanity," Professor Gu added with a solemn expression. "God bless, let the human emperor win." Sui was so nervous that his palms were covered in sweat. God bless. The bullet screen was filled with this sentence. Looking at the terrifying cosmic starlight, many people began to pray for the human emperor. When the 12 star palaces appeared, everyone felt as if the end of the world had arrived. It was also as if divine punishment had appeared and was about to befall the people of the world. Even though they were watching the live stream through the screen, they had the urge to kneel down and pray for repentance. The 12 star palaces slowly pressed down. Even those watching felt suffocated. The 12 star palaces were like the power of the heavenly Tao. Under the heavenly Tao, everyone was an ant. Even an unprecedented sage would find it difficult to escape the suppression of the heavens. Sooner or later, he could only accept his fate. Don't die. Hui Haifeng's forehead was covered in cold sweat. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets as they were bloodshot. He now regretted letting Zhouwen appear. However, who the F***ck knew that Zhouwen would do such a thing? If he really died inside, he didn't know how to explain it to himself. Zhang Chuanxiu and Xiao Luchuan also stared intently at the screen. Xia Luchuan, who had always liked to tease, was now like a mute. He couldn't say a word. Oppression, indescribable oppression. Everyone felt as if a mountain of fate that they couldn't escape was pressing down on their chests. It was so uncomfortable that they couldn't breathe. It was as if the sky was about to collapse. Despair involuntarily filled their minds. Boom! A dark golden bolt of lightning shot up into the sky, splitting a star palace into pieces. It was like the first ray of light in the polar night that shone into everyone's hearts. Boom! Boom! Explosions sounded incessantly as the star palaces that represented fate were blasted into pieces. It was like a clap of thunder in the ears, making the people who were about to suffocate feel as though mountains had been crushed in their chests. All of them couldn't help but tremble as the despair in their hearts gradually turned into excitement. Boom! The moment the last star palace was shattered, everyone's bodies trembled. Then, they let out a long breath as though they had been relieved of a heavy burden. The star palace was destroyed, and the starlight that filled the sky was extinguished. There were only two figures standing proudly in the star palace. One was covered in holy light as he looked up at the sky indifferently, while the other was handsome and wild as he looked down at all life in the sky. I want to write in peace, but there are always some things that make it difficult for me to be calm. The life of a mortal is really helpless. End of this chapter. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.